Chapter 4475. This palm traversed the void and the power of deathly stillness, forcefully entering Samsara Palm's body. Samsara Palm's enormous skeleton body stopped. Luin suddenly appeared behind it, his celestial eyes staring at Nibeluo. Crow fixed body. Nibeluo was fixed. At this moment, the two top powerhouses paused. The power of deathly stillness erupted from Lu Yin's body once more. One of his eyes was black and the other white, and his hair fell to his waist. Black gas coiled around his upper body like a rotating nebula, turning into a white chain. He held the Go Lian in his hand and activated the deathly stillness transformation. Then, his godly power boiled at the same time. The tricolored godly power transformation was still present. One of his pupils was black and white, while the other was scarlet. The deathly stillness transformation and godly power transformation existed at the same time, dividing his body into two halves. The power of deathly stillness and the tricolored godly power simultaneously filled Lu Yin's mind, causing him to fall into madness. These two powers were not what he had been cultivating all this time, so it was easy for him to lose control. Now, he wanted to forcefully fuse them, so he could no longer control himself. He roared at the sky. Using his own extreme power as a guide, the Go Lian lifted and slashed. The black, white, and tricolored godly power were drawn out at the same time, striking the back of Samsara Palm's head. This was Lu Yin's strongest attack so far, surpassing the deathly stillness transformation and the tricolored godly power transformation. This attack shocked even Nibeluo. It was unheard of for an attack to reach such a level without breaking through to immortality. Samsara Palm felt a chill at the back of his head. Inside his body, Nibeluo's forgetful world technique made it difficult for him to move, so he could only let the attack hit him. At this moment, a huge shadow soared into the sky and blocked Samsara Palm's head. It faced the attack head-on and was easily torn apart. It was the Eternal Realm skeleton that had knocked Samsara Palm out of Crow Fixed Body's range. It had no power to fight back under Lu Yin's attack and was directly split in two. The attack still landed on the back of Samsara Palm's head. Bang! With a loud bang, space-time shattered, and countless cracks spread across the three universes. Countless people spat out mouthfuls of blood, their faces pale. The power of deathly stillness in the skeletons of the Death universe suddenly paused, and some of them even fell to the ground. The God King was shaken as he looked into the distance, feeling the aftermath of the attack. Even he was afraid of this power. The continent of the Nine Clouds was submerged in the two black and three-colored godly energies. The pure black light was lifted. Countless mountains shattered and oceans evaporated. Under the slash, the glaring light was like a sun rising in the three universes, making it impossible for people to look at it directly. With a kacha sound, the Go Lian cracked open. Then, it shattered and fell down. Every fragment contained a deathly stillness and vitality, falling down like meteors. Lu Yin grasped a small portion of the Go Lian and stared at the back of his head. He couldn't help but despair. There was a clear and deep cut on the back of his head behind the life and death calamity. However, it was only a slash mark. Lu Yin had originally wanted to use this attack to strike the shattering palm Samsara's head and then use it to slash at Nibi low. Yet, even the life and death calamity palm couldn't shatter it. This was already the greatest strength he could muster. If Nibeluo hadn't given Zhang Wuji a blow, and if he hadn't used a sneak attack to stop Nibeluo, he wouldn't have had the chance to strike. But why was it still like this? Lu Yin felt powerless as he stared blankly. Samsara Palm slowly raised his hand and rubbed the back of his head. He then turned around and stared at Lu Yin with his empty skeletal eyes. You are the first person to injure me since the Battle of Nine Bases. To me, it is a shame that you are not an eternal being. Die. With that, he raised his giant skeletal palm and slapped out. Lu Yin's body was sent flying. Along the way, he smashed through the 9 firmaments and shattered the stars. Half of his body was numb, and the Golian fell off. The death rain was released once again. Ni-Baluo's cage kept shrinking with Luin as the center. It tore apart the heavens and earth, creating gray ripples that were traces of time. The tributaries of the river of time were boiling. In the face of a battle of this level, time was meaningless. You can't kill him. Ni-Baluo moved to block the descending seal of life and death, but his own trident pierced through Lu Yin's abdomen and lifted him up. Lu Yin's blood flowed along the trident, dyeing it red. Samsara palms spun the black plaza and collided with the trident. Flames flickered and Lu Yin was sent flying by the huge force. The deathly stillness and tricolored godly force on his body retreated. These two forces couldn't help him. This was an absolute difference. He was now a toy for these two giants to fight over. At the same time, in the Heaven Origin universe, Red Hero looked at the giant 10-eyed crow in front of him. He had finally found it. Ordinary Eternal Realm experts would need a year to travel from the 9 firmaments universe to the Heaven Origin universe, but it was nothing to him. How did Luin do it? How could he divert the 10-eyed crow? But it was no longer important. No matter how much power this kid had, it couldn't make up for the difference. He glanced coldly at the 9 firmaments universe and saw Luin being fought over. He spat out blood and was heavily injured. Damn it, this lowly thing dared to scheme against him. Everyone in the 3 universes had to die. Red Hero frowned and slowly turned around. He didn't know when, but a figure was very close to him. Your pattern is very strange. Red Hero sized up the newcomer in surprise. It was Jiang Feng. The 10-eyed crow was located in the Heaven Origin universe, and Red Hero was discovered as soon as he arrived. Jiang Feng wanted to attack immediately, but he could hide from Si Qin's perception, but he couldn't hide from Red Hero. He thought he would have a chance to attack. Jiang Feng was also helpless. Red Hero was too unfathomable. Divine King, Samsara Palm, and Ni-Baluo all looked extremely powerful, but Red Hero might not be below them. It was just that this person was better at hiding. Follow me, and there's no hope for this universe, Red Hero said indifferently. He admired Jiang Feng because he was very close to him. This was somewhat inconceivable. An ordinary Eternal Realm cultivator, no, not exactly ordinary. His aura was very strange and unstable, but he was actually so close to him. Even an existence that was compatible with 2 universes might not be able to do so. And why was this person's aura so strange? It seemed like eternal life, but it also didn't. He felt like he had heard of such a situation before. Jiang Feng was helpless. I know, but I'm not good at being a traitor. Red Hero was cold. I'll give you one more chance. Follow me, and you can live. Then, he raised his hand and bent his fingers. The void kept folding in the direction of the 9 firmaments universe. The folded void kept twisting and fusing. Finally, the scene was pulled infinitely closer and reflected in Jiang Feng's eyes. He saw Lu Yin struggling and spitting out blood. He tried his best to counterattack, but he was powerless. He saw Master Qing Chao fighting to the death to protect the Blood Tower Protector. He saw Master Qudeng struggling to cope. He saw the Startle Gate Protector on the verge of death. He saw countless blood rain falling. Seeing this, do you still think there is hope? Follow me. This is the chance I'm giving you, the only chance. Jiang Feng saw Lu Yin fighting back again and again, but he was suppressed again and again. His body was breaking, and he was in a desperate situation. He closed his eyes and exhaled deeply. He didn't run away. He can teleport, but he still didn't. He ran away. Red Hero frowned. Stubborn. Jiang Feng opened his eyes and looked at Red Hero with a smile. Do you have children? Red Hero's eyes were cold. You don't. Jiang Feng shook his head. You won't either. If you have children, you won't watch your children being bullied by others while you run away. So you are a traitor. What you betrayed is not only your own civilization, but also your self-esteem as a human. I'm sorry to let you down. It's better to have some self-esteem. After that, thunder exploded, and he took a step forward. Everything in the starry sky was alive. He closed his eyes and could see more clearly. Everything began from nothing, and the universe itself was nothing. The sword edge, containing thunder, kept approaching Red Hero. Red Hero stared at Jiang Feng coldly, but under this coldness, there was surprise. It was getting harder and harder to detect. As this person approached, it was as if he didn't exist in front of him. His existence was disappearing and merging with the universe. This wasn't the disappearance of his body, but his aura, his life itself, was disappearing. It was as if he had become one with this space, and his existence was an anomaly. This feeling made Red Hero very uncomfortable. He waved his hand, and the sword edge cut into Jiang Feng's body bit by bit. No blood. The sword edge flashed. Jiang Feng and Red Hero passed by each other. Red Hero looked at Jiang Feng again. In front of Jiang Feng, spots of blood appeared and gradually expanded. Red Hero narrowed his eyes. There was blood, but why wasn't there just now? Jiang Feng slowly fell down and fell into the starry sky. At this time, a punch came from afar. It was from Ancestor Qin. He held Wang Xiaoyu and punched Red Hero with the starry sky fist. Red Hero was disgusted. He hated the scene of Ancestor Qin holding Wang Xiaoyu. He hated such human emotions. The sword edge reversed and slashed. The starry sky fist was cut off. Ancestor Qin knew he couldn't live, so he punched. But in the next moment, the scene in front of him changed. A woman appeared beside him. It was Lu Hui. Senior, are you okay? Lu Hui teleported away with Ancestor Qin. Ancestor Qin shouted, Go! In the distance, Red Hero sneered and raised his sword. Teleportation. If it weren't for the unknown rules, Lu Yin wouldn't have been able to escape his attack range, let alone a junior. The sword slashed down. Ancestor Qin punched out with the starry sky fist. The sword cut through Ancestor Chen's arm. At the same time, it swept behind him and killed Lu Hui. Ancestor Chen's severed arm fell, but he didn't have time to care. He watched Lu Hui fall to the ground, completely dead. So what if she teleported? Anyone who participated in this battle would die. Red Hero raised his sword again. The sword just now was aimed at Lu Hui. This junior could teleport, which made him hate her. This sword would end her. This war was a disaster for the three universes, but in his eyes, it was just a game. A game to take revenge on these people for scheming against him. A scream suddenly sounded, and Red Hero looked in a direction. Was that Xianling? In the distance, karma visible to the naked eye soared into the sky and covered the Tianyuan universe. Xianling soared into the sky. It was Nanling. Following closely behind the South Spirit was the Azure Lotus Guard. Mr. Mu had finally removed the Red Lotus Tomb. Red Hero looked into the distance and sneered. These humans were so stupid. They had worked so hard to seal Nanling, but now she was released. They were really at their wits' end. Chapter 4476. In the Nine Firmaments universe, Lu Yin looked in the direction of the Tianyuan universe. Had the Red Lotus Tomb been removed? Why? There were only 3 people who could remove the Red Lotus Tomb. One was him, the other was Alarmed Guard, and the last was Mr. Mu. He and the alarmed guard were both in the 9 firmaments, so it was naturally impossible. Then, could it be Mr. Mu? The Red Lotus tomb had always been placed in the Tian Yuan universe to prevent immortal plume theft. Only Mr. Mu could remove the Red Lotus tomb. Why would Mr. Mu remove the Red Lotus tomb? Even with the addition of Azure Lotus Guard, there was still the South Spirit. The South Spirit was also extremely powerful and could teleport. It was even more threatening than the godly king. Mr. Mu could not be so irrational. On the other side of the Tian Yuan universe, far away from the godly king, the South Spirit flew around and chirped happily. It had finally come out. Humans, you are dead. It wanted to take revenge on humans and completely destroy them. On the other side, Azure Lotus Guard looked around and saw Mr. Mu and Chu Songyun, who were struggling against the godly king. He also saw the miserable Lu Yin, Blood Tower Guard, and the others. He also saw Master Qing Chao, who was blocking the Blood Tower Guard. Was this a desperate situation? The Death Universe. The Mud Kingdom's Mud Kingdom. Humans, you are finished. The South Spirit flapped its wings and teleported towards Azure Lotus Guard. I want you to pay the price. Azure Lotus Guard's expression was solemn as he allowed the South Spirit to teleport and attack with its claws. He slowly raised his hand and faced the South Spirit. No one knew what he did, but there was a soft sound in the void. Countless people's vision distorted as the South Spirit's body suddenly flew backwards as if there was an unstoppable force pushing it away. The South Spirit spat out blood as it smashed through the stars and flew out of the Tian Yuan universe. It stabilized itself with great difficulty and looked at Azure Lotus Guard in disbelief. How was this possible? Impossible. He had actually pushed it back with one strike. Impossible. This human had clearly thought of all sorts of ways to seal it together with his own body. They should have perished together. Why did that happen just now? Lu Yin also saw this scene, and his pupils shrank. What had happened? Master Qing Chao sighed. In the end, he had allowed Azure Lotus to attack. In order to deal with the danger brought by Wang Wen, his external preparations had been cut off, but his internal preparations were still there. For example, Azure Lotus Guard's Azure Lotus Guard. All of this was to confuse Wang Wen. Qinglian was the most talented cultivator he had ever seen, second only to Lu Yin. In order to find Wang Wen and deal with Red Hero and the unknown, he sacrificed his cultivation realm and killed himself. It was the same for Qinglian. He had been suppressing his strength all this time. Even when he fought against Red Hero, he didn't expose his strength. That was because the person he really wanted to deal with was Wang Wen. Is the karma celestial phenomenon covering the 3 universes to deal with Red Hero's law? Yes and no. The karma constellation was unceasingly consuming karma energy. The Green Lotus had no way to stop it. If it wasn't for the karma constellation, his strength would have long been discovered by Wang Wen. Why was he able to lead the Death Universe away by himself? Because his existence was valuable to the dead universe. Why did he seal himself in the battle against Xianling? Because if he didn't seal himself, the unknown would be even more fearful. Perhaps this battle would have happened long ago. Qinglian's true strength was enough for Wang Wen to expose himself early. They didn't know how powerful the 9 Bases era was, but Green Grass Masters knew very well that the Green Lotus era was extremely powerful. Its existence somewhat exceeded his imagination. Qinglian was equivalent to Lu Yin, who had cultivated for an endless amount of time. Impossible. Nanling shrieked. The feather god's spear pierced towards Qinglian. With the 10,000 Daos unification as its core, its feather god's spear was far stronger than Si Qin and Mingyu. These humans couldn't possibly block it. Qinglian's expression was calm. Facing the feather god's spear, he raised his hand and pointed. 1,000 faces karma, heavenly finger wheel. In an instant, the world shook. Whether it was the Tianyuan universe, the ninth heaven universe, the spiritualized universe, or even the consciousness universe that was being reactivated, they were all covered by a sudden power. That was the power of karma. That was the karmic constellation. The karmic constellation appeared in an instant. Like a wild beast, it slammed into the death universe and the white light of the God King. Then, a strand of karma was separated and turned into a heavenly finger wheel. The heavenly finger wheel collided with the feather god spear. The feather god spear could pierce through anything. No external force could stop it. It would definitely pierce the opponent's body. Under countless gazes, the feather god's spear pierced through karma and pierced Qinglian's fingertip. A drop of blood was imprinted in everyone's eyes. Qinglian was injured by the feather god's spear, but the heavenly finger will also hit Nanling. Nanling wanted to teleport away, but the feather god's spear couldn't hit Qinglian because the feather god's spear used the 10,000 Daos unification as its core. Without the core, how could it be powerful? If Nanling wanted the feather god's spear to pierce Qinglian, he would have to take the heavenly finger wheel's attack. In the past, neither Lu Yi nor Qinglian had thought of exchanging injury for injury and facing the feather god's spear head-on. But at this moment, Qinglian had done so. Exchanging injury for injury. From the process, it was equal, but from the result, the green lotus imperial finger was pierced through. A drop of blood was extremely glaring, but the southern spirit spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body was sent flying into the distance again with a wail. Along the way, her feathers were scattered and dyed red with blood as they drifted down. Lu Yin watched in shock. He couldn't believe it either. Was that Qinglian? Scenes related to Qinglian kept appearing in his mind. The sentence that left the deepest impression was, "Two of me are equivalent to a fishing civilization." This sentence was said by the Blue Lotus Emperor himself. He believed that the two of them were comparable to the fishing civilization. At first, Lu Yin believed it. At that time, his vision was limited to each universe. At that time, it would take him a year to travel from the Nine Firmaments universe to the Tianyuan universe. However, the more he traveled, the more he realized that this sentence was wrong. Even if there were 3 or 4 Qinglian, they wouldn't be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with a true fishing civilization, let alone 2. The weakest fishing civilization they had encountered was the Dark Enlightenment civilization. However, with the Dark Enlightenment civilization's absolute methods and talents, even Patriarch Shan's 7 treasures Heavenly Toad clan would be defeated in a long period of time. A god king from a divine realm civilization could erupt with strength that matched the 3 laws of the universe. The Mud Kingdom's Mud Kingdom's Mud Kingdom, not to mention the unfathomable unknown and death universe. Although Lu Yin remembered this sentence, he had taken it as a joke. He thought that Qinglian had misjudged because he didn't understand the concept of distance. Now he knew that he was the one who had misjudged. It was obvious that Qinglian was also a part of the scheme against Wang Wen. On the surface, they were all scheming against Red Hero, and they were indeed scheming against Red Hero. However, the deeper part was actually Wang Wen. It was only now that Lu Yin understood why Master Qing Chao, who had killed Mi Jin Shangyu, was safe and sound. There were as many as a dozen Eternal Realm experts at the peak of the 3 universes. In the eyes of the top powerhouses, ordinary Eternal Realm experts were not as important as they thought. Therefore, the 9 Firmaments universe still kept Master Qing Chao alive. He had killed Mi Jin Shangyu. Xueta Shangyu and Jingmen Shangyu were extremely resentful of Master Qing Chao, but they were suppressed by Qinglian. The reason was that Mi Jin Shangyu had said before his death that he was considerate of mankind. However, those words could be listened to or not. Now they knew the truth. Thus, before sealing the Red Lotus tomb with the South Spirit, he had specifically reminded Lu Yin not to hand the Red Lotus tomb over to the unknown. He could have used the power of the unknown to open the Red Lotus tomb and eliminate the South Spirit, but Azure Lotus was unwilling to do so. That was because Nan Ling was not a real threat. If he appeared in the unknown, he would definitely be seen through by the unknown. At this moment, Qinglian Shangyu was the real Qinglian Shangyu. He had comprehended the karmic celestial phenomenon, lived the longest in the 3 universes, and had the highest talent. Xueta Shangyu and Jingmen Shangyu were also shocked. They did not expect Qinglian Shangyu to suppress Nan Ling. When Xian Ling attacked, they had to fight hard to resist. Mr. Mu also understood why Master Qing Chao had specifically reminded him to remove the Red Lotus tomb once the human civilization was in danger. Of course, he was not stupid. He removed the Red Lotus tomb, released Qinglian Shangyu, and also released the more troublesome Nan Ling. However, Master Qing Cao's reminder and the current desperate situation forced him to do so. Of course, what really drove him to do so was knowing the identity of Master Qing Chao. A Master Qing Chao was not enough to make Mr. Mu believe, but Mi Jin Shangyu was different. Fortunately, he had listened to him. Impossible, human, you can't block the feather god's spear. Nan Ling hissed. Her eyes were ferocious as she stared at Qinglian Shangyu. Qinglian Shangyu said coldly, believe it or not, I can kill you. Nan Ling was furious. She stared at Qinglian Shangyu. Qinglian Shangyu did not look at her anymore. He turned to Red Hero, if I join forces with Lu Yin, we can return Jiu Wen's freedom. With a thought, he knew everything. Red Hero could appear here because Jiu Wen was trapped by Wang Wen's power. He believed that the 3 universes would be destroyed in this battle. When the time came, he might have a way to stop Jiu Wen from breaking his path of ruthlessness. The foundation of all of this was the destruction of the 3 universes. If not, he could not stop Jiu Wen. Now that Qinglian Shangyu had awakened and displayed extraordinary strength, although Red Hero still did not believe that the 3 universes could survive in such a desperate situation, there was no need to perish together with the 3 universes. One was Lu Yin, and the other was Qinglian Shangyu. One could teleport, and the other was powerful. If the 2 of them fought to the death, it would not end well. Red Hero was not interested in helping others. Red Hero's eyes flashed. He took a deep look at Qinglian Shangyu. Then, he smiled, I'm only here to look for the 10-eyed crow. Now that I've found it, I'll leave. With that, he left under Qinglian Shangyu's gaze. He could not bring the 10-eyed crow with him, but it did not matter. The 3 universes were about to be destroyed anyway, and the civilizations that had destroyed the 3 universes did not know that the 10-eyed crow was here. Humanity could not protect it, and it would still belong to him in the end. It was just that the location had changed. Nobody stopped Red Hero from leaving, even though he had heavily injured several experts. Leaving Red Hero behind meant that there was no hope for the 3 universes. Lu Yin sighed. Red Hero had left, and Qinglian Shangyu had returned. Humanity's hope had increased, even if it was only by a millionth. Chapter 4477. Human, I remember you. Samsara Master looked at the Heaven Origin universe and stared at Azure Lotus Protector. Azure Lotus Protector met his gaze. I remember you too. You were the one who escaped from right under my nose, Samsara Master said. Azure Lotus Protector's expression turned solemn. I won't escape again this time. Samsara Master's death domain suddenly expanded and pressed against the karma phenomenon. The karma phenomenon had previously been able to push back the death domain and the God King's white light. Now, as they exerted their strength, the phenomenon was also being compressed. 3-colored godly power surged around Lu Yin's body as the karma heavenly Tao connected to the phenomenon. He looked at Azure Lotus Protector. Senior Azure Lotus, please. Lu Yin could borrow the karma of the karma phenomenon, but Azure Lotus Protector could also borrow the karma of the karma heavenly Tao. The current karma heavenly Tao was so majestic that even Azure Lotus Protector was shocked. How many powerhouses had Lu Yin pushed into the commander appointment platform hell? With such majestic karma pouring in, Lu Yin opened his arms, and the karma phenomenon expanded, pushing back against the death domain and the God King's white light. This was the fusion of the karma heavenly Tao and karma heavenly Tao. Lu Yin was not stingy as he fused all of his karma into the phenomenon, all for this gamble. If the three universes were gone, then what was the point of his existence? It had always been others who made the wedding dress for him. Now, he was going to make the wedding dress for Qinglian Shangyu. Samsara Master and the God King were shocked. Even they could not suppress the karma phenomenon at this moment. Skeleton, I lured you away back then. Now, let's fight to the death. Azure Lotus Protector took a step forward, and karma descended, turning into the heavenly finger will that pointed at Samsara Master. Samsara Master raised his skeletal palm and used the seal of life and death. Bang! Karma and the power of death collided endlessly. The black and white colors tore through the universe like lightning, exploding above the heads of countless creatures. Nanling suddenly teleported to Azure Lotus Protector's head and stabbed out with her feather god spears. Suddenly, Lu Yin also teleported to face Nanling and reached out to grab her. Nanling's feather god spears changed directions and stabbed towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin teleported away and punched out with the starry fist. Nanling also teleported away. Both sides kept avoiding each other, and neither could touch the other. At that moment, countless wails traveled into Lu Yin's ears. Lu Yin looked at the nine firmaments cosmos and saw that the cage was constantly shrinking, tearing apart countless people's bodies and causing rivers of blood to form in the nine firmaments cosmos. Throughout the cosmos, the strings of the sequence were being torn apart. If the cage was allowed to shrink, the nine firmaments cosmos would definitely be reactivated. If Dan Ho hadn't been constantly fusing time and space to cast pills, which led to the lack of parallel time and space in the Nine Clouds universe, it would have restarted already. Leave it to me as well. You go and deal with Nib Luo. Azure Lotus Emperor's voice sounded. Lu Yin's gaze darkened. Can you block it? Qinglian Yu smiled faintly, you won't die so easily. Lu Yin teleported away and then reappeared right above the cage. He raised his hand and pressed down, causing tricolored divine power to spread along the edges of the cage. The tricolored divine power continued to extend and cover the entire cage. Nib Luo didn't care about the appearance of the Azure Lotus Guard at all. Throughout human civilization, no one could stop him. It only wanted Lu Yin to become the fourth blade of the trident. This person was too suitable. With its strength, it could easily take in many eternal life realms as the fourth blade. But the fourth blade wasn't that simple. The trident already gave it a combat power that was close to matching the three laws of the universe. If it could take in the fourth blade, it could transform its strength and truly achieve the combat power that matched the three laws of the universe. Or even higher. But because of this, like the realm, it couldn't succeed. It wasn't until the last time it encountered Lu Yin in the war with the unknown that it saw hope. It was difficult for an eternal life realm to become the fourth blade. It couldn't break through, but what about those who weren't eternal life realms? Those who weren't eternal life realms were not as difficult to take in as those who were eternal life realms. Even if it still couldn't break through, it could make it take half a step closer to that realm. And Lu Yin's combat power was extraordinary. Whether it was teleportation, karma, or other powers, he was qualified to become the fourth blade. Such a perfect candidate was one that it had always been concerned about. The reason why it participated in this battle was not only because of the conditions of the Master of Balance, but also because of itself. As for avenging Nib and the others, it didn't even think about it, and it didn't need to. As long as it could take in this human, its combat power would soar. It would become the pinnacle of the square inch in one fell swoop. It could definitely take him in. Thinking of this, it looked at Lu Yin, covered the cage with tricolored divine power and stabbed the trident fiercely. The trident stabbed at Lu Yin. Lu Yin's abdomen was bleeding, and his body was severely injured. Fortunately, he was able to withstand it. He teleported and disappeared. The trident teleported at the same time, constantly chasing after him. Although the life and death calamity of Palm was led away, it didn't reduce the pressure on him. Instead, because of Nib Luo's all-out attack, he was in danger at every step. But if he didn't lead the life and death calamity of Palm away, he would never be able to succeed. Now, he could still fight. The three universes were very big, but in this battle, they were like drifting ships that could capsize at any time. Qing Lianyu wanted to scare Nanling away, but how could Nanling be scared away so easily? Even if it knew that the entire Immortal Plume tribe was asleep, it didn't retreat. The humans had to pay the price. They were dead. Dead. In the Tian Yuan universe, under the cauldron and red umbrella, Mr. Mu and Chu Songyun looked at each other and saw each other's thoughts. This God King has been using us as bait to bait this war. Otherwise, with its strength, we wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Mr. Mu didn't know if he should be happy or sad. The humans had been used as bait, and the God King wanted to fish, the life and death calamity of Palm wanted to fish, the Red Hero wanted to fish, and Nib Luo wanted to fish. Above them all was Wang Wen's calm face. He was fishing for everything. Although it was called fishing, it was also called balance. This was called balance. Mr. Mu finally understood the meaning of these three words. Balance was Wang Wen's fishing method. However, perhaps they only had a chance of survival in a desperate situation where no one was willing to go all out. Otherwise, the three universes wouldn't have been able to hold on until now. Boom! 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 Explosions shook the universe's stars. Qing Lianyu continuously struck out with his palm technique, colliding with the seal of life and death. The life and death calamity of Palm similarly struck the bone palm. The two sides were separated by two universes, and they continuously attacked each other, causing the two universes to rumble and shake. Dust fell from Immemorial City, and the desolate god had no choice but to grab the sequence's string again. Although it seemed useless, it was at least more resilient and wouldn't break so easily. The aftermath of any battle was enough to wipe out an entire universe. Within the Mirage domain, the tributary of the River of Time was boiling. There were clashes of time forces everywhere, and the tributary of the River of Time was stirred up. Zhao Ran couldn't participate in the Battle of the Eternal Realm, so she could only suppress the River of Time as much as possible. Otherwise, if she attracted the River of Time, the Tian Yuan universe would be the unlucky one. The humans couldn't see any hope in this war. Lu Yin's miserable state crushed the faith of countless people. It turned out that Lu Yin could also be defeated. He had always been. He was a human, not a god. Bang! There was a loud explosion, and Qing Lianyu retreated several steps. His palm trembled, and the void was destroyed. Outside Ninifirmament's universe, the life and death calamity of Palm also took a step back and watched in shock. This human's age was far less than his, but he could actually face the seal of life and death head-on. This human's potential was too terrifying. He raised his hand again and struck out with the seal of life and death. All kinds of attacks started with one and ended with one. It was enough to be effective. Qing Lianyu's palm was bleeding. He took a step forward and struck out again. No matter what, he wouldn't retreat. Behind him, Nanling suddenly appeared. Feather God spears fell like raindrops. This human could block the Feather God spears, but he would have to pay a price. Now that the death calamity was facing him head-on, she only needed to attack from the side to put him in a desperate situation. In front of Qing Lianyu was the seal of life and death, and behind him were the Feather God spears. The two killing forces enveloped him. He couldn't teleport, so he couldn't escape. The two attacks approached each other. Qing Lianyu raised his right hand, and from top to bottom, he drew down a strand of karma, causing the entire karma celestial phenomenon to cave in. He turned his arm, and karma rotated. The karma I've comprehended is that fate is the beginning, experience is the path, and karma is the end. Karma is karma, and karma is cause. If there is cause, then there is effect. If there is effect, then there must be cause. As soon as he finished speaking, the two attacks descended. He turned around, and the seal of life and death went out of control and attacked Nanling. Nanling's feather god spears also went out of control and stabbed at the life and death calamity of Palm. Nanling looked at the seal of life and death and subconsciously teleported away. The life and death calamity of Palm wasn't so lucky. He could only face the feather god spears head-on. The light of the death calamity was like a curtain, pierced by the feather god spears. The feather god spears pierced through the black square, and a loud sound rang out. Even the life and death calamity of Palm couldn't ignore Nanling's feather god spears. He was also a powerhouse that was compatible with two universal laws, and was recognized by Xianling and the unknown as a peak existence that was compatible with two universal laws. In this battle, he obviously couldn't compare to the life and death calamity of Palm, the God King, and the others, but he wasn't too far off. Because of his teleportation, those existences couldn't do anything to him. Although he was weak, he still couldn't ignore it. What shocked Nanling the most was Qing Lianyu's methods. This person could actually make the feather god spears lose control. The life and death calamity of Palm looked deeply at Qing Lianyu. He wanted to end this battle as soon as possible and compete with Nib Luo for Lu Yin. Of course, he also hoped to use the bone language to make Qing Lianyu his subordinate. Now, his interest in Qing Lianyu was no less than Lu Yin's. This human was very strong. Murmurs entered Qing Lianyu's ears. Qing Lianyu exhaled. Bone language. He was already very familiar with it. The ninth heaven universe was a deathly existence. He had once told the outside world that he was marked and couldn't fight. In reality, he had indeed been marked, but he had also used the mark to study the bone language. If he didn't find a way to resist the bone language, how would he face the death universe in the future? In the end, he had to endure. That's right, he had to endure. The bone language, in the end, was the power of deathly stillness stripping away life. At the same time, it used the power of deathly stillness as a medium to transfer life to Baigu. Because Baigu belonged to him, it went smoothly without any obstruction. If one wanted to resist the bone language, they had to either use the power of deathly stillness to prevent it from stripping away life, or they had to endure. It was impossible for a bone language to allow the weak to strip away the life of the strong. It was too heaven-defying. Chapter 4478. The bone language was also a way to use the power of deathly stillness, and the transmission channel was this murmur. As the murmur appeared, an invisible power vibrated on the surface of Azure Lotus Protector's body. It was the power he had used to resist the feather god's spear and the seal of life and death. This power was in accordance with the second law of the universe, compression. It was a simple word, but it contained unparalleled power. Karma had always been Azure Lotus Protector's power. When he was young, he had lost his true love and comprehended karma. After breaking through to immortality and learning part of the truth of human civilization, he wanted to have absolute power to change the future of humanity. Hence, compression. Everything in the universe was being compressed, whether it was planets, civilizations, or life. The universe was compressing all living things, and he wanted to use this law to destroy all strong enemies. This law was completely inconsistent with his personality. Lu Yin did not expect Azure Lotus Protector to have such a law. Karma had already made him strong enough, and the karma he had comprehended was the power of slaughter. Now that he had compressed it, his destructive power had reached a new level. This was why he could resist the seal of life and death and Nanling's feather god spear. He had lived shorter than these two creatures. The bone language allowed the power of deathly stillness to enter his body. Then, Nanling appeared with the feather god spear. It was the simplest move, but its purpose was to ambush. At this time, the broken Go Lien appeared in front of Azure Lotus Protector. The power of deathly stillness instantly enveloped Azure Lotus Protector. This was Lu Yin's power of deathly stillness that helped Azure Lotus Protector break through the seal of life and death. Lu Yin and Azure Lotus Protector looked at each other, then teleported in front of Nanling again. The trident teleported to pursue. Lu Yin moved aside. The trident was straight. Nanling teleported away at the same time. This human deserved to die. Lu Yin suddenly teleported in front of life and death. He did not disturb the God King, so he could naturally see that it was a balance. Unless the God King took the initiative to break the balance, he would not make a move. The trident chased after Lu Yin, but because Lu Yin had avoided it, it stabbed towards life and death. Life and death knocked the trident away. Human, you underestimate my death universe. You think you have the power to resist us? Let me show you what true deathly stillness is. After saying that, the death rain suddenly disappeared. Boundless and majestic deathly stillness energy covered the life and death calamity palm like a torrential river of darkness flowing in reverse. At the same time, a majestic deathly stillness energy also gushed out from the black square. Lu Yin's expression changed. Not good. He recalled that Lagujin's great death teleportation had borrowed the power of the deathly stillness beneath Delight City. This black square belonged to the life and death calamity. Could it be that it also had the same power of deathly stillness? That was not something he could fight against. Senior, don't force yourself. Lu Yin shouted, reminding the Azure Lotus Protector. Blue Lotus Imperial Guard's gaze was heavy. Nanling also looked at the life and death calamity that seemed to be capable of overturning the universe. Her gaze was also filled with fear. This power was too terrifying. Not to mention that human, even it could easily be torn apart by Guyu. The death universe was once one of the main forces that attacked the ninth base. Even the immortal plume and the unknowns were afraid of its strength. It teleported away, afraid of being targeted by the life and death calamity palm. In the universe of death, there was an immortal feather that could teleport, but it was just a skeleton. As long as there was a chance, these monsters of the death universe would be more than happy to increase the number of white bones of the immortal plume. The power of deathly stillness was still rising, and the life and death calamity in his palm seemed to be pressing down everything that existed. At this moment, even Nib Luo and the God King were afraid of it. The area was already dark enough, but the life and death calamity palm was like the source of all darkness, swallowing all light. The towering skeleton was eerie and terrifying. It grew larger and larger, as if it was going to swallow the three universes. Lu Yin's scalp went numb. It couldn't be, right? Could this guy's deathly stillness power be comparable to Patriarch Shan's power? That power was something he could not reach at the moment. Once it used Guyu, it would be troublesome. Blue Lotus Imperial Guard suddenly rushed towards the life and death calamity palm. The karma celestial phenomenon that fused with the karma heavenly Tao fell at the same time, merging into his body like a waterfall. The power of deathly stillness flowed against the current, while the power of karma flowed down. He wanted to use the same trick again, sealing himself with the red lotus tomb and the life and death calamity palm. There was no other way. This was the only way to prevent the humans in the three universes from turning into skeletons. Lu Yin, this is impossible. Save your life. Remember, saving yourself is saving humanity's civilization. Blue Lotus Imperial Guard growled as karma continuously gathered. Lu Yin watched helplessly as Blue Lotus Imperial Guard rushed towards the life and death calamity palm. Nanling also saw this and subconsciously wanted to remind the life and death calamity palm, but after some thought, what was the point? The death universes and humans were enemies. That human had hidden his strength and was scheming something big. He was hateful and despicable. However, the karma that Lu Yin currently possessed should be enough to seal himself with the life and death calamity palm, which was much more than sealing himself before. Let's perish together. Blue Lotus Imperial Guard constantly approached the life and death calamity palm, but the skeleton that connected the heavens and the earth was the only thing in his eyes. Lu Yin coughed up blood as the blade pierced through his body. The trident had attracted Blue Lotus Imperial Guard's attention, and Ni Biluo had taken advantage of him. However, the pain in his body could not cover up the pain in his heart. Blue Lotus Imperial Guard had done his best, and he could only sacrifice himself. His words had sent the three universes into the abyss, just like Master Grass. He had allowed Lu Yin to save his own life. Was there really no other way? The life and death calamity palm raised his hand and grabbed at Blue Lotus Imperial Guard with a giant arm. At this moment, he was incomparably confident. Blue Lotus Imperial Guard took a deep breath as scenes of the past appeared in his mind. No amount of scheming could compare to absolute strength, but who would give them the time to develop? Lu Yin, Mr. Lu, I hope you can do it. The lotus bloomed, and Blue Lotus Imperial Guard used karma to prop up the sky. It spread out and enveloped the life and death calamity palm. A red lava-like color surged into the lotus and slowly closed. Grave of the Red Lotus. The power of the deathly stillness pressed down, and the power of karma soared into the sky. Countless people were speechless when they saw this scene. A solemn atmosphere spread through everyone's hearts. Looks like I'm not too late. A familiar voice caused Lu Yin to turn around and look at the horizon. The river of time had appeared at some point in time, and it roared out and crashed into the closed lotus. It did not crash into the lotus, but rather into the life and death calamity palm. That old fellow had arrived. Lu Yin stared at the river of time in a daze. He had never looked forward to this old fellow's arrival so much. Even if this old fellow was unknown, even if he did not know if he was a friend or foe, there was no worse situation than this. The river of time's impact were not heavy, but it had forced the life and death calamity palm to retreat. It was not afraid of the river of time, but rather the master river of time. This tributary of the river of time could be easily torn apart, but it would be troublesome if the master river of time was drawn out. Blue Lotus Imperial Guard could not use Grave of the Red Lotus. The closed lotus dissipated, and Lu Yin looked up at the horizon. Ni Biluo also looked up. This unknown had actually arrived. In the Heaven's Origin universe, the God Kings feared him. Who dared to control a tributary of the river of time without restraint? Was he not afraid of being swept away by the master river of time? An absolute expert. That old fellow's arrival had stopped the war. Little fellow, does it hurt? The old fellow asked. He could not see it, as it was hidden within the tributary of the river of time. Lu Yin lowered his head, and the trident suddenly disappeared and returned to Ni Biluo's hand. It looked at the river of time. The unknown also wants to participate. Lu Yin spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was riddled with holes, but he had to persevere. At the very least, he had to delay an absolute powerhouse. Why have you come? The life and death calamity palm stared at the tributary of the river of time. To meet my old friends. The old fellow laughed, his tone relaxed. Samsara palm slowly turned his huge skeleton body to face the river of time. You want to help humanity. Why do you think so? If not, why would I attack? Maybe I want to help you. Samsara Palm's tone was low. Old friend, you don't have to participate in this war. Just like before, isn't it good to watch from the sidelines? Samsara Palm laughed. There needs to be a place to sit. You all have destroyed the place where I sit. Where can I find a place to sit? Also, this little fellow has a deal with me. I can't let him die, right, little fellow? Lu Yin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and smiled. His blood-stained hair was blown by the wind. Yes, we have a deal. White has sealed the portal, leaving you with no way to ask for help. I took a huge risk to come here. Little fellow, you have to think carefully about this deal. If you agree, there is no room for regret. Lu Yin did not hesitate. I won't regret it. At this time, even if he had to capture 100 tributaries of the river of time, he would not hesitate to solve the crisis of human civilization first. As long as you don't regret it. Ni Biluo's tone was cold. Is it worth it for a deal that is destined to be fruitless? Samsara Palm said, human civilization is doomed. It will be the same even if you attack. Perhaps you can think of a way to save that little fellow. Don't forget why we are here. Your balance envoy will not agree. I have always wanted to study the human race. They have a kind of resilience that allows them to regenerate no matter how desperate the situation is. This time, I want to see if that is the case. Little fellow, don't disappoint me. Lu Yin exhaled. The smell of blood was pungent. He panted heavily. The hope of humanity was coming. Azure Lotus Protector, old man. Since there was hope, there was a chance. Even if he was in despair, he would still fight. Now, he had to fight even harder. Old man, hold one back. Then let's go to the universe of death. The most suitable person to be held back was Samsara Palm. This was because Samsara Palm did not have the ability to teleport. If the old man held back Ni Biluo could still chase after Lu Yin with the trident. After all, Ni Biluo's methods were not limited to the trident. The old man might not be able to hold back Ni Biluo. Only Samsara Palm could be held back. Of course, Lu Yin would be happy if Ni Biluo wanted to kill one, but the old man would not do that. He would bear the burden of karma for a deal. It was not worth it. It was already a blessing for humans that it could hold back one. Chapter 44-79. Lu Yin teleported away from the 9 firmaments, but when he looked back, the trident teleported and a bridge extended from the 9 firmaments universe. Human, where can you escape to? Life-threatening samsara needed Lu Yin, and it wanted to retrieve Azure Lotus Guard. However, he had blocked it, leaving it helpless. The God King was still in a stalemate with Mr. Mu and Chu Songyun. Currently, Blue Lotus Superior only had Nan Ling as his opponent. However, when Lu Yin teleported away, the opponent changed again. Senior, are you sure? Lu Yin asked. Azure Lotus Guard had just sent him a message, telling him to switch opponents. He would deal with Ni Biluo while Lu Yin would deal with Nan Ling. This was actually the most logical duel, as Nan Ling could use teleportation to fight Azure Lotus Guard. It would be difficult for Azure Lotus Guard to defeat it, as it just had to constantly dodge. Azure Lotus Guard could not break through teleportation. The difference in power between Lu Yin and Ni Biluo was too great, and it would be extremely difficult for Lu Yin to stall the former. However, if Azure Lotus Guard attacked Ni Biluo, then while the trident might still chase after Lu Yin could also stall Nan Ling and prevent Azure Lotus Guard from being too passive. Azure Lotus Guard was also confident that he could force Ni Biluo's trident back. Azure Lotus Guard was different from Hehe. Hehe's goal was to stall and would not risk his life, but Azure Lotus Guard would. Definitely. Azure Lotus Guard turned around and pointed at Nibiluo's bridge with the 1,000 Faces Karma finger wheel. The bridge immediately collapsed, and Nibiluo growled, "How arrogant. You might have a chance of survival if you avoid me, but you actually dare to fight me head-on." Azure Lotus Guard's palms flickered, and he struck out with both palms. "Old man, I'll let you die here today." The compressed void in his palms was enough to resist the seal of life and death. The trident pierced towards Azure Lotus Guard. Lu Yin teleported in front of Nanling. "I've killed more than one mixed bird. It's your turn now." Nanling's eyes were vicious. "You think I'm Changdo? If not for my misgivings, I would have destroyed you long ago. Although I don't know how that universe descended, if this technique appears again, you will be torn to pieces." The claws descended, but Lu Yin waved his hand, and the tricolored divine power was torn apart by the claws. Only by facing them would one be able to feel the gap between them. The southern spirit was stronger than Mingyu and Changdo. They were able to withstand the three-colored godly energy, but the southern spirit was able to tear it apart. Even though Nanling was the weakest, she was still not someone that Lu Yin could deal with. If not for life and death calamity Palm and Nibiluo wanting to obtain him, he would have been obliterated long ago. The South Spirit did not need him. "Lu Yin, be careful." Blue Lotus Shangyu shouted. Lu Yin teleported away from his original location, and his trident pierced through the void. Nibiluo had not given up on him. Blue Lotus Imperial Guard's expression was heavy. Nibiluo's power was beyond his expectations. It seemed to be even stronger than Life and Death Calamity Palm. It was enough to match Life and Death Calamity Palm when he unleashed all of his deathly stillness power. This was an existence that was close to matching the three universal laws. If he didn't go all out, he wouldn't be able to make it retrieve its trident. Gazing at Nibiluo, heavenly finger wheels appeared around Green Lotus Lord. One after another, there were 1,000 of them. Each heavenly finger wheel was formed from the 1,000 faces of karma. The 1,000 heavenly finger wheels condensed the entire karma great constellation. This was a karma great constellation that was fused with the karma heavenly Tao. Even Blue Lotus Imperial Guard himself had never displayed such terrifying karma power. The 1,000 heavenly finger wheels were like blooming lotuses. Lotus Sansho, heavenly finger wheels, treasured lotus mirror. Blue Lotus Imperial Guard pointed a finger at Nibiluo. Nibiluo trembled. What terrifying karma power! It had comprehended karma itself, but it had only used karma to designate karma. It had not walked very far on the path of karma, and it had instead used it as an absolute method of its race. This treasured lotus mirror made it apprehensive. It had no choice but to recall its trident and stab out. The treasured lotus mirror clashed with the trident. Two forces that surpassed the two universal laws collided outside of Ninafirmament's universe. The surging power caused the three universes to tremble, and countless people felt stifled. Life and Death Calamity Palm's deathly stillness power was pushed aside. The tributary of the river of time was almost sent flying. Lu Yin did not have the time to watch Blue Lotus Imperial Guard's battle. Nanling was putting too much pressure on him, and he was already heavily injured. Although he had dodged the trident sneak attack, he had not been able to dodge Nanling's Feather God spear. The spear had pierced his shoulder, and his blood stained the sky. Nanling's gaze was cold, and the Feather God spear descended once more. Lu Yin stared at Nanling, but the spirit did not look him in the eye. Crow immobilization was ineffective, but Lu Yin did not only have crow immobilization. It was time. Heaven's eye extended, and intersecting black lines enveloped Nanling before spinning. Nanling abruptly turned around in shock. What was going on? It no longer looked Lu Yin in the eye. How could this be? Could this be another innate gift of the ten-eyed crow? Forcefully turning around would at most interrupt Nanling's attack. Lu Yin's true goal was crow immobilization. He teleported in the direction where Nanling would definitely be turned around. When Nanling was forced to turn around, he coincidentally met Heaven's Eye. Crow immobilization. Nanling was frozen. Immobilization. It stared at Lu Yin. He actually had two innate gifts of the ten-eyed crow. He had actually hidden them until now, and he had not even revealed them in the previous near-death battle. Despicable human. Lu Yin opened his palms, and half of the deathly stillness transformation's power converged into a blade while the other half converged into a sword. Within his body, the power that he had been suppressing all this time completely erupted, and the blade and sword slashed down at Nanling's body. Nanling screamed, "Human, you're courting death." The two blades pierced into Nanling's body and pierced through its back, causing blood-stained feathers to fall to the ground. Lu Yin pulled out the two blades and stabbed out again. "Mixed-hair bird, I said that I would kill you." Nanling's eyes narrowed to the size of a needle as it stared at the two blades that Lu Yin had raised up high. An indescribable suffocation caused Lu Yin to lose all his strength, and he actually almost lost his grip on the blades. In his hands, the two blades continued to weaken. What was going on? Not good. It was an invisible world. Lu Yin hurriedly stabbed down. The two blades pierced into Nanling's body once again, but this time, the depth of the blade was very small, and could not even pierce through Nanling's body. Nanling's gaze was ferocious. "Human, I will torture you to death. I swear, I will definitely torture you to death." Lu Yin continued to stab with the blades, and every time he stabbed, the power of the blades would decrease until they completely disappeared. Lu Yin panted heavily, and the deathly stillness transformation and three-colored god transformation were also weakening. Nanling's invisible world was causing his power to disappear. "Human, you can't hurt me anymore." Nanling screamed coldly. Lu Yin's lips curled up. "That's not necessarily true." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly retreated. A trident appeared behind Nanling's back and stabbed towards Lu Yin. If it wanted to stab Lu Yin, it would have to first pierce through Nanling. Nanling felt a sharp pain in its back as the trident pierced through its body. Blood dyed its body red as it stabbed towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin teleported away to avoid the attack. Nanling left crow-fixed body and spat out a mouthful of blood. It watched the blood-stained trident disappear in front of it, and it was furious as it glared at Nibiluo. It had been severely injured. Outside of Ninafirmament's universe, the Azure Lotus Defense gathered karma once more and was about to use the treasured Lotus Mirror, as only that could force back the trident. However, the treasured Lotus Mirror was not that easy to use. "Human, you should be proud that you were able to stall me and even force my trident back, but this is as far as you go." Nibiluo could see that the Azure Lotus Defense had already consumed a large amount of karma, and the treasured Lotus Mirror could not be used easily. Blood continuously dripped from the Azure Lotus Defense's palm. The law of compression had reached its limit while resisting the seal of life and death, and it had also consumed a large amount of karma. In the end, he had been constantly using karma to exhaust himself in order to avoid attracting Wang Wen's attention, which had resulted in him not being able to truly cultivate to the peak of two universal laws. Otherwise, it would not have been so difficult. Wang Wen's restrictions on human civilization had not been set after Lu Yin's rise, but had existed for a long time. That line could not be touched. Above his head, a shadow loomed over as Nibiluo's cement covered the Azure Lotus Defense. The Azure Lotus Defense hurriedly dodged, as it could not be covered by the cement. Otherwise, it would be drawn out or even recorded. On the other side, Lu Yin was also dodging the trident. Nibiluo was fighting 1 against 2, and it had the strength to do so. "Wait, where's Nanling?" Lu Yin's wish shrouded the universe, and he quickly found her. His expression changed. He saw that Nanling was holding someone in its claws, Dan Hong. Lu Yin gritted his teeth and teleported behind Nan Ling, unleashing his tricolored godly power. Nan Ling casually tossed Dan Hong aside and looked back with a cold gaze. "Human, I will make you pay." It then teleported away. Lu Yin looked at Dan Hong, who had fallen to the ground. She was already dead. Dan Hong was the god of defense, a powerhouse respected by all of the Nine Firmaments universe. For the sake of the Nine Firmaments universe, she would rather not break through eternal life and use spacetime to cast her pill. If not for this, the Nine Firmaments universe would have already been reactivated during this great battle. This was the largest battlefield. Dan Hong's contributions could not go unnoticed. Now, she had died under Nan Ling's claws. Nan Ling teleported and reappeared in the eastern region of the Nine Firmaments universe, Myriad Elephant Valley. Its claws swept past, and Wan Lu died. Zhua and you were facing off against Bai Gu from the Death universe. When they saw Wan Lu die, they rushed towards Nan Ling. Nan Ling sneered at Lu Yin and waved its hand, shattering their bodies and dyeing the ground red. It did not care about the restrictions of karma at all. Lu Yin clenched his fists and furiously chased after it. Behind him, the trident chased after him. Nan Ling teleported again and again, disappearing time and time again. It did not want to fight with Lu Yin at all. It wanted revenge for the harm this human had caused it. Humans were toys. Back then, the Nine Firmaments universe had been toyed with by them, and now, the three universes were the same. No one could escape. Those people's deaths were already too easy for them. Nan Ling wanted to torture Lu Yin to the very end. Every time it teleported, Nan Ling would kill one person. It was not many, just one person. However, Lu Yin recognized most of these people because the people it had killed were at least at the level of the sequence laws. The Nine Firmaments universe, the spiritualized universe, and the Heaven's Origin universe could not be separated by Nan Ling's teleportation. Lu Yin watched as it killed Void Master. It killed Great Elder Shan Gu. It killed Yi Ruo and Luo Shan. It killed Castellan Feng from the spiritualized universe, Shi Xiu, Princess Yao, and the three venerables from the Revelation Gate. Familiar and unfamiliar people died one after another. Chapter 4480. He saw Mr. Tide Listener, the third-generation master of the Five Palms, die in battle. He saw Qingyun crying as she hugged the Stargate Protector. He saw progenitor Chen silently hugging Wang Xiaoyu's corpse while Lu Hui's corpse lay beside him. He also saw Chunan Hongye beating her drum. Half of her body had been destroyed, and only one arm remained. She had fulfilled the Chunan clan's oath. At this moment, the three universes suddenly felt strange. If everyone he knew died one by one, would this world still be the same? Behind Lu Yin, the trident teleported and stabbed towards him. "Careful," someone shouted. They saw it, but they couldn't stop it. Lu Yin was stunned, and his hatred for Nan Ling reached its peak. Suddenly, the trident stopped, and the surrounding void shattered. The sky and the stars changed. Was this the consciousness universe? "Zhu Zi, what are you doing?" Was this the progenitor's voice? Lu Yin looked into the distance and vaguely saw the heavenly tower. At this moment, the old man who controlled the life and death tribulations, Ni Biluo, and even the God King stopped and looked into the distance in bewilderment. What was this strange feeling? It made them subconsciously want to stop. The consciousness universe's second shift had come from the progenitor. More accurately, it had come from the creature who had left the heavenly tower behind. That creature had been disappointed in the Azure Lotus Protector, and now, Lu Yin could see the true strength of the Azure Lotus Protector. He couldn't determine what kind of existence that creature was. "Zhu Zi, what are you doing?" Lu Yin looked into the distance. "Senior. Are you at a loss?" "No, I'm hating." The heavens circulate, and so do all living things. What do you hate? Civilization hasn't been destroyed, and its legacy continues. No creature is truly immortal, and only civilization is eternal. Luin clenched his fists. I understand. This is the end, but it shouldn't be the process. It shouldn't be like this. The progenitor sighed. Child, you are more ruthless than anyone, but you are also kinder than anyone else. If you hate, then change everything. Lu Yin's eyes widened. How? I don't know, but what I can do is to give you a chance to change. It might be an instant, or it might be a long time. I don't know how much time you have. Go, child, do what you want to do. Living creatures are afraid of death, so they want to live. Being afraid of death is not shameful. Survival is both instinct and the cornerstone of civilization. After he finished speaking, the thatched cottage in the heavenly imperial palace suddenly appeared, followed by a cliff. Above the cliff, there was a palace that they had never been able to reach before. Within the palace, the progenitor was seated cross-legged. At that moment, he opened his eyes and smiled at Luin. Luin saw the primogenitor's familiar face once more. The first time he saw it was in the underground of Primeval City. The primogenitor had lost both of his arms. He knelt on one knee and bit the string of the sequence, protecting the Tian Yuan universe for countless years. This time, Luin felt an inexplicable sense of unease, as if he was about to say goodbye. Senior, what are you doing? Luin shouted. The primogenitor smiled happily. Do what you want to do. Human history has never lacked people who sacrificed themselves for civilization, but I hope you're not that one. Go. With that, he put his palms together, and the palace suddenly expanded, covering the three universes in an instant. Everything was frozen, be it time, space, or anything else. Including Nibelon. The top experts who controlled the life and death tribulations were also frozen in the void, unable to move. The entire three universes were trapped within the palace. An unimaginable might suppressed everything. Even the old man he didn't say a word. It was eerily quiet. The stronger one was, the more they could feel the terror of this suppression. It was like a power on another level. Luin was the only one who was pushed out of the palace. He looked at the palace and saw that all the living creatures were frozen. He looked at the primogenitor again and called out nervously, Senior. The primogenitor's figure distorted and gradually faded. We will meet again, Zhu Zi. I don't know where or how long, but as long as you live, there will be a day when we meet again. Do what you want to do, child. Protect our civilization and protect yourself. With that, the primogenitor's figure completely faded away. Luin watched the primogenitor disappear, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. He suddenly opened his eyes, raised his hand, and touched the palace. He couldn't enter. The creatures inside couldn't come out either. They were all frozen. He looked deeply at the three universes and teleported away. Within the three universes, the God King was uneasy. What kind of power is this? The life and death tribulations master said in a low voice, the power of the master Tao. Nibelon said, I didn't expect the human civilization to be hiding such a power. Fortunately, it's just a remnant power and not the human civilization. Otherwise, the outcome of this battle would be hard to say. The primogenitor's tone was unusually solemn. The God King didn't understand. What does the power of the Master Tao mean? The life and death tribulations master said, join my death universe and you'll understand. Then why don't you join my Mudwater Kingdom? Nibelon said. Joining the unknown is not impossible. Their conversation was heard by Uppermost Lotus and the others, but even the God King didn't understand, let alone them. Uppermost Lotus cultivation talent was extremely high, and the Grass Grandmaster was extremely intelligent, but their knowledge was still limited. However, this was even more frightening. Their limited knowledge allowed them to possess power and schemes that were beyond their knowledge. This was transcendence. Where did that human go? Bilan was curious. He had been chasing Lu Yin with his trident, but he knew that Lu Yin wasn't within the fixed 3 universes. Nan Ling's voice was cold. No matter where he is, this civilization is doomed. This power won't last for long. Mr. Mu was helpless. If Nan Ling wasn't so strong, Lu Yin would have been able to replicate his feat of killing Chang Do. However, Nan Ling wasn't Chang Do. The despair of the human civilization had only been fixed, not removed. At this moment, everyone hoped that Lu Yin could change all of this in the limited time he had, even though the possibility was very small. Xiang City was some distance away from the 3 universes, but occasionally, the aftermath of the battle would sweep over, causing the stone monster to tremble. It didn't know where these aftershocks were coming from, but wasn't that the direction of the human civilization? At this distance, it couldn't be. How could the human civilization's battle reach so far? It looked into the distance, its heart palpitating. Lu Yin's sudden appearance in front of it gave it a fright. This was mainly because Lu Yin was covered in blood, and it was obvious that he had been severely injured. In particular, there were several piercing wounds on his body, which made him look extremely miserable. Is Tuolin inside? Lu Yin asked. The stone monster hurriedly nodded. Yes, he's been in Xiang City all these years. Lu Yin entered Xiang City. The only way he could think of to break through was to break through. Only by breaking through to immortality could his power level transform, and only then would he be able to fight for a chance at survival for the 3 universes. Over the past few years, he had been comprehending through music in Delight City, and he had built a high mental wall. However, it had yet to fall, and as long as he did, his mental state would be complete. Building a high mental state wall was equivalent to completing coup adversity, but this final step was even more difficult. Many people had been stuck at the peak of coup adversity, unable to break through. Lu Yin had taken a shortcut by building a high mental state wall, and now, he needed to borrow Xiang City's power to take a shortcut. Only Xiang City could help him take this final step. He hoped that the primogenitor's palace would stabilize the 3 universes as much as possible and wait for him to succeed. It had been nearly 800 years since he had last entered Xiang City. At that time, he had seen Tuolin help build the river and the inheritance of life within Xiang City. Those people were just words in Tuolin's eyes, like books. So many years had passed since then, and Lu Yin wondered how Tuolin was doing. Although Tuolin did not cultivate much, his meridians had been reconnected by Xixing, so he could definitely survive for a long time. A few hundred years passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Yin entered Xiang City and transformed into a bird. He circled around the city and looked down, only to be stunned. He saw statues, statues after statues, many of them, all of them of him. These were all statues of him. Lu Yin looked around. Xiang City had changed greatly, and there were statues of him everywhere. Needless to say, this was definitely the work of Tuolin and Xiaoyu. Lu Yin's power of belief fused into each person's body, and after seeing their experiences and listening to their words, he soon understood. The people in Xiang City could not cultivate and had a fixed lifespan, but Tuolin did not. Tuolin, because of his request, constantly talked to everyone. Even though Xiang City was big, everyone knew him over the years. It was also because of him. He had lived for so long without showing any signs of aging. He had become a master and was respected by the people of Xiang City. His master was Tuolin, and Lu Yin was known as the Sage Master. Lu Yin had never expected that he would become Xiang City's Sage Master before he had even transformed into a human. If he had appeared in person, wouldn't these people have listened to him? Lu Yin quickly found Tuolin, who was now at the center of Xiang City. This should have been a place similar to the city lord's residence, but it had now been given to Lu Yin. However, the area was not as large as before. It was as if a room had been specially set aside for Tuolin. This small courtyard was not large, but there were flowers, birds, fish, and insects, trees, mountains, and rivers. Tuolin was still carrying Qinghe on his back, smiling as he conversed with an old man. Not far away, Hui Kan, who had transformed into a kitten, was yawning in boredom. There were also puppies, turtles, and so on. There were many creatures that had transformed into humans in this courtyard. After the old man left, Tuolin bowed to Lu Yin's statue. "Master, your disciple has not let you down. I've seen everyone in Xiang City these past few years and have seen many words. Those words jumped out in front of my eyes, waiting for you to come so that I can point them out to you." "Tuolin," Lu Yin said. Tuolin looked up and saw a flying bird. He was delighted. "Master." When Huikan heard Tuolin shout, he hurriedly jumped up and looked up, revealing a fawning smile. "Master." The entire courtyard boiled over. The trees, the fish, the insects, the table, and even the puddle were all moving as if they were bowing. They had all entered from the three universes, so they naturally knew who Tuolin's master was. Lu Yin landed on the statue. "Tuolin, let me take a look at the words you spoke." He was very anxious and wanted to break through to eternity. However, the more anxious he was, the harder it would be to break through. He had taken a shortcut to come to Xiang City, and the key to this shortcut was on Tuolin. Tuolin was delighted. "Yes, master. I'll show you." Lu Yin landed on Tuolin's shoulder. Xiaoyu was delighted, she was so close to her master. Chapter 4481. Tuolin excitedly walked out of the courtyard and walked towards the street. "Master, look, that's Uncle Shi. Uncle Shi's family quarries for a living and provides the city with stones. In his spare time, Uncle Shi will use his own stones to fill up the roads. The roads in the city are flat and wide, and a lot of that is due to Uncle Shi's efforts. I see the Shi character on Uncle Shi's body." "Greetings, master." Uncle Shi hastily bowed when he saw Tuolin. Although Tuolin called him Uncle Shi, he was much older than Tuolin. "Uncle Shi, you've worked hard. How's your shoulder injury? You were naughty when you were young and fell from a tree in my courtyard. You haven't fully recovered even after so many years." Uncle Shi smiled bitterly. "I can't recover. It hurts every time it rains or cloudy days, but it doesn't affect my work. Thank you for your concern." Tuolin nodded and continued to walk forward. "Master, that's little Anzi. He's famous for asking questions. He's like this. His teacher, teacher's teacher, and teacher's teacher are also like this. They will bring questions to every corner, but they will also answer people's questions. They are good people. I saw the word ask on him." "Master, that's shopkeeper Ma. His family has sold horses for generations. Xiang City may not be big, but there are people who like horses. They gallop by the river outside the city, and there are horse races every year. I see they've horse character on him. That's Brother Tang. He likes to grow flowers. I see they've Tang character on him. That one. Every time Tuolin mentioned a person, Lu Yin seemed to see a character on that person's body. He shouldn't have been able to see this character, but for some reason, he could see it now. It was like adding the finishing touch to a painting or lifting a curtain. Could it be related to these statues? Lu Yin looked at the statues he passed by. There was definitely a possibility. Word after word appeared in his mind. Lu Yin looked back and saw that these people were still people, but they were also characters. These characters flew into the sky, constantly colliding and jumping. It was very strange. There were many people in Xiang City, and Tuolin wanted to take Lu Yin to see everyone. However, Lu Yin didn't have the time, so he could only use his wish to envelop the area. He directly asked Tuolin, what are these characters? Master, he is begging, she is buying, he is providing. Words jumped out one after another, imprinting themselves into Lu Yin's eyes. He increased his speed and flew above Xiang City, circling around it continuously. It was as if he was in a sea of words, and he knew who each one corresponded to. He watched as people greeted Tuolin one after another and devoutly wiped his statue. At the same time, he could feel that these people were smiling at him and treating him with respect. He heard more and more people's voices, and those voices seemed to pour into his mind. His power of will continued to spread out, and the area it covered had doubled, tripled, fivefold, tenfold, and it was still increasing. He felt everyone's gaze on him. All of a sudden, his body began to fall. A heavy feeling kept pushing him towards the ground. His vision changed. He lowered his head and saw his hands, legs, and body. He had become a human. Master. Tuolin was pleasantly surprised. Congratulations, Master. Qing he swayed. Congratulations, Master. Huiken was envious. Congratulations, Master. Lu Yin stood on the street and looked at his hands. He had finally become a human. He was the second person to become a human out of everyone who had entered Xiang City. He was also the second person to return to his original form after Xiang City had been snatched away by Yu Che. However, his blood-stained clothes were truly, everyone around him was stunned, and their eyes were filled with fear. Master, what happened to you? Tuolin was shocked, and his face turned pale. Huiken stared at Lu Yin. He was seriously injured. Lu Yin coughed and tore open his blood-stained clothes. The inner layer was still fine, and there wasn't that much blood. Master, let's change. I have clothes, Tuolin said and quickly ran over to support Lu Yin. Lu Yin wanted to refuse, but after some thought, he nodded. All right. Soon, they returned to the courtyard, and Lu Yin changed into Tuolin's clothes. Tuolin looked at Lu Yin's injuries, and his eyes turned red. Qing he was bent, and Xiao Yu was very worried. Lu Yin rubbed Tuolin's head. Master is fine. Don't worry. Then, he looked out of the courtyard. At this moment, many people had gathered outside. They were all from Xiang City, and they were all kneeling on the ground to greet the sage master. Lu Yin walked out of the courtyard and saw a dense mass of people kneeling on the ground. Greetings, sage master. Greetings, sage master. Greetings, sage master. Everyone was greeting him, and they were all extremely sincere. They were all ordinary people. Tuolin had lived for hundreds of years and was regarded as a master, while Lu Yin had been deified. Lu Yin looked at these people. Rise. Everyone slowly got up, and they looked at Lu Yin with eyes full of sincerity and reverence. This kind of gaze had never appeared in Xiang City before. It was the ultimate reverence and faith. Do you have a request? Lu Yin asked. Looking at these people, he didn't know how to take the final step of immortality. Perhaps he could obtain the recognition of the entire Xiang City and take control of it. This was the only way he could break through. One person knelt. I have a request. What is it? I pray that my mother's body is healthy. She has been working hard for days and coughs incessantly. I beg the sage master to be merciful and help my mother. I don't ask for immortality. I only ask that she be healthy and live a long life. Lu Yin looked at that person. This request was very simple. I also have a request. What is it? I pray that my farm will not collapse. My farm is located in the middle of a river, and the water flows rapidly, constantly washing away the soil. My farm is shrinking, and I don't even have enough food to eat at home. I have a request. I have a request. Luin listened to these people's requests, and they were all very simple and ordinary. There was no mention of riches, immortality, or cultivation. All they had was the most ordinary life and the most simple happiness. He looked at the desire in these people's eyes. Their lives were fleeting, and it would be a great fortune if they were healthy. Happiness in life was actually very simple. What they asked for was already very high, but to Luin, it could not be any smaller. Cultivation was a circle. If it was a cultivator, what requirements would they have? Ask for cultivation. Cultivation methods. Battle techniques. Breakthroughs. What a normal person asked for was corresponding to their short and ordinary lives. What a cultivator asked for was corresponding to their struggles, battles, and intense lives. But whether it was a normal person or a cultivator, what they asked for was corresponding to themselves. Luin had built his mental walls and seen the experiences of many people and creatures. There were cultivators and ordinary people, but in the end, it was all about the cultivation world. Ordinary people in the outside world knew that there were omnipotent people, but there were no such people here. In this world, everyone was an ordinary person. His own life. It was a circle. Cultivation was a circle, the outside world was a circle, and Xiang City was also a circle. He did not know how to tear down this mental wall. It was erected in the outside world, and it corresponded to Xiang City. Using a circle to plan his life, it corresponded to his current self. Luin lifted his foot and walked towards the street. He did not know why, but he just wanted to listen to more requests. He instinctively wanted to listen. At the same time, in the Tian Yuan universe, where Luin had been in seclusion, the 3 luck characters written by Qian Shu burned and turned to ash. Xiang Xiyu saw this and pondered for a moment before spitting out a mouthful of blood. Her face paled. She stared at the ground in a daze. But soon, her gaze changed, becoming unfamiliar and sharp. It did not seem out of place on her flawless face. Instead, there was a different kind of charm to it. Destroying your own luck for someone else. Damn it. The 3 universes shook. Xiang Xiyu looked outside, and her gaze changed again. It alternated between sharpness and absent-mindedness until she finally fell into a daze. Her eyes closed, and she collapsed. In the 9 firmaments universe, the Nibi Luo trident vibrated continuously. In the distance, the life and death seal gradually condensed under the calamity bone palm, and deathly stillness rumbled. The South Spirit's eyes were ferocious, and her blood-stained feathers swayed. Around the God King, motes of light slowly moved, and then they sped up. The palace's fixed position was about to be broken. But how long had it been since the distance had been fixed? Luin could not have broken through in such a short time. Was the 3 universes really going to be destroyed? That was good. At the very least, Luin would be able to survive. Human civilization did not only have 3 universes. But even if they were destroyed, these universes would not have an easy time. Back in Xiang City, Luin walked along the streets. Everyone had heard that the Sage Master had arrived, and they automatically gathered on both sides of the street, waiting for him. No one blocked his path. One street ran from east to west, while another divided the north and south. As Luin walked along the street, people constantly prayed to him. Sage Master, please heal this lowly one's broken leg. My wife is already having a hard time, and I still have to raise 2 children. I don't want to be a cripple forever. Sage Master, please protect the bridge from collapsing. My son died under a bridge that collapsed. Sage Master, Luin heard everyone's prayers. They were the most ordinary of pleas, but they constantly transformed into some kind of power that crashed into the walls of his mental state that had already been built, causing them to shatter piece by piece. He was pushing down the walls of his mental state. Luin himself had not expected to become a human in such a short time, and he had even found a way to push down the walls of his mental state. Walking through Xiang City was the final step. With each step, he felt his cultivation drop. With each step, he felt his mental state approaching that of immortals. Cultivation was a circle. In the past, he had climbed up step by step, which had been extremely difficult. Now, it was the other way around. He was walking down an ordinary path. Luin looked up. Heaven and earth were the real world, not just this piece of land. Every statue of him in Xiang City glowed with vitality, as if they had a mind of their own. Luin himself, on the other hand, was walking down the path of a mortal. Step by step, he walked down one street, then another. Tuo Lin's courtyard divided the city into 4 streets. He walked down 3 before heading to the final street, which was the street that would leave Xiang City. If he headed east, he would be able to leave Xiang City. Luin did not go there, but instead headed west. Chapter 4482. Scenes from the past flashed through Lu Yin's mind. He was obsessed with protecting, and the bitter adversity was letting go. Overcoming the bitter adversity was the process of letting go. It was not giving up, but rather letting go of the obsession in his heart. He saw that the craziest people were the loneliest, the most vicious were the most pitiful, and the kindest were the most vain. He saw the ordinary and the extraordinary, the light and the darkness. He saw Meng Hui's most innocent smile, and he also saw Shu Su's yearning for the ordinary. He thought of the dream of dying in bed of old age, of a loving mother and filial son. That was the dream of an ordinary person, but even an eternal life realm cultivator yearned for such a dream. Life experiences were different, but dreams were the same. Just like how cultivation was a circle, dreams were the beginning and the end. Unknowingly, Luin walked down the street and reached the end. There was originally a wall here, but in Lu Yin's eyes, a door had appeared. For a moment, he thought that he had walked in the wrong direction. Looking back, he saw the many figures on both sides of the street and the door on the other side. That door could leave Xiang City. Then, what was this door? Please, Sage Master, please, Sage Master. Countless people knelt down and prayed for the most ordinary of wishes. Luin looked deeply at the crowd and slowly said, "Thank you." Everyone was at a loss, not understanding what the Sage Master was thanking them for. Tuo Lin did not understand either, but his master was right. Luin looked at these ordinary people and also at their words. Each word represented the heart's destiny technique. He had not cultivated it, but it had allowed him to take the final step. This word of thanks was given to Xiang City and the ordinary people. It was given to all those who had high hopes for him and hoped that he could help them. History was like this, and someone had to walk in front. The enjoyment was left to the ordinary people. Luin turned around and placed both hands on the city gates. He pushed them open. The gates opened wide, and he stepped out of the city. With this step, he ascended from being a mortal to surpass his past self and embark on the path to immortality. His state of mind had transcended, and his vitality had ignited the void. Behind Luin, Xiang City swayed. He looked up at the stars, and as his state of mind transformed, his perception of the universe changed as well. It was carefree, free, and indescribably comfortable. It was like an ordinary person swimming in the water and suddenly landing on dry land. He felt a sense of control over his body and his surroundings. At this moment, every inch of his flesh and blood, every cell in his body was jumping and boiling with joy. He seemed to have blended into the universe. He felt like his entire body was melting. But halfway through, it stopped. He looked at his hands. What was going on? Just a bit more, just a bit more. He had already achieved a breakthrough in his state of mind, so why was he still lacking a little? Liu Yin's thoughts raced as he looked around. What was the difference? It was definitely not his mental state, but something else. He recalled every step he had taken on the path of cultivation. Suddenly, he thought of Xiang Xiyu. Xiang Xiyu's luck in the first half of her life had turned into a disaster in the last step, making her unable to take it. In the first half of his life, he was comparable to an existence that was compatible with the two laws of the universe at the level of a rogue. This shouldn't have existed in the first place. He had surpassed the upper limit of a creature time and time again, and every time he surpassed it, it actually increased the difficulty of breaking through in the future. It was true that cultivation was a circle, but for this circle to be connected head to tail, it also needed some points. He believed that he was this point, but this point was not completely compatible with the circle. That's right, he hadn't fused with it yet. What he needed to do now was to completely fuse with this circle. From a cultivator's shedding mortality, then from shedding mortality, he would achieve immortality. Life was a circle, so it had to be perfected. If he wanted to become the compatible point, he had to return to zero. Liu Yin had never been so clear about himself before. Whether it was his realm or his speculations, everything was incomparably clear. It was so clear that it was as if someone was holding the answer and telling him what he should do. He sat down cross-legged, and from his wound, a trace of blood spilled into the sky. He used the 9 clones technique, and a drop of blood turned into a clone that brought out the starry fist and punched Liu Yin himself. This punch landed heavily on Liu Yin's body, causing his body to shatter. The doppelganger dissipated, but another doppelganger appeared. This doppelganger was imbued with godly power. The tricolored godly power transformed and bombarded the doppelganger. The godly power bombarded Liu Yin's body. Then came the power of deathly stillness, the karmic wheel, and the hidden sword. Each attack came from Liu Yin himself. He turned himself into his own tribulation and returned his original body to zero. He used this state to become the point of the circle, connecting head to tail. He didn't know if he should thank Nibiluo and the others for injuring him in advance. Otherwise, even with the power of his clones, it would have been difficult to injure himself to the point of returning to zero. Returning to zero meant that he had declined to the extreme. Just like the ancient god from before. He had entered such a state. If not for his mastery realm battle force breaking through to vitality, he would have died. The ancient god had entered such a state because he couldn't smoothly take that step. Liu Yin had entered such a state of his own accord. Only in this state could he become the point of convergence. As various powers fell, Liu Yin's body continued to decline. His vitality had long since dissipated, and the eternal substance continued to fuse into his body, pushing forward the process of decay and rebirth. His aura was getting lower and lower, lower and lower. In the distance, the stone monster was stunned. What was going on? Self-mutilation. Self-mutilation. Did he have to be so ruthless? He was already heavily injured, and now he was hurting himself. This human must be crazy. Suddenly, the stone monster felt its heart palpitate. It looked in the direction of the human civilization. What was going on? What was going on? The fixed palace in the 3 universes had shattered. It lasted for a shorter time than expected. The moment the palace shattered, Nibiluo suddenly attacked, thrusting his trident towards the Azure Lotus Protector. Since that human escaped, you will take his place. It didn't really want to take in the Azure Lotus Protector. It couldn't do it. An ordinary Eternal Realm cultivator couldn't be taken in. The Azure Lotus Protector used the Lotus Treasure Mirror again, and the 1,000-finger heavenly will spread out, holding up the sky. His voice spread across the 3 universes. There are billions of races in the universe, but only we, the human race, are in the sky. The inheritance will survive. What's wrong with dying in battle? Everyone, are you willing to live and die with me? Countless people shouted, we are willing to live and die together. We are willing to live and die together. We are willing to live and die together. Nan Ling sneered. That human called Lu Yin has escaped. Foolish humans, your beliefs are laughable. Master Grass looked up at Nan Ling, is that so? I hope what you said is true. If he is willing to escape, that will be good. Nan Ling was stunned. What did he mean? The Azure Lotus Protector laughed. I really hope that child can escape. Escape? I hope so. On the Blood Tower, the Azure Lotus Protector coughed up blood and laughed bitterly. Mr. Moose smiled. Escape, I hope so. I hope he can escape. Master Lu, I hope you can escape. You must escape, Master Lu. Mr. Lu, Nan Ling was stunned. She heard countless people shouting for Lu Yin to escape. Damn it, wasn't it shameful to escape? You are all going to die, but that human has escaped. Why are you acting like this? Why? Ni Biluo, the life and death calamity master, did not move. He also heard the voices of countless people. They were all sincere. They hoped that Lu Yin could escape, even if it was just once. In countless battles, Lu Yin had been at the forefront. He had not given up even when there was a slim chance of survival. Everyone had seen how miserable he had been in the previous battles. Lu Yin, who was like a god in their eyes, had crumbled. At that time, they knew that even Lu Yin would be defeated, and that there would be times when he was powerless. However, their reverence for Lu Yin did not diminish. He had already done his best, and that was good. He was the inheritor of human civilization. Master Lu, live on. Countless people clenched their fists and shouted silently. Master Lu, live on. The life and death calamity master said in a low voice, what a terrifying civilization. Ni Biluo agreed. Such a civilization should not exist. Nan Ling's gaze was cold. Lowly, inferior race. The God King rarely spoke. I misjudged you. I thought you were just a civilization. Humans. Your belief in the inheritance makes me uneasy. Since I have already made my move, I must destroy you. Then, specks of light suddenly fell and tore through the Tian Yuan universe, heading for the above heaven sect. This was the God King's first real attack. The cauldron and the red umbrella were pushed back by 2 specks of light. Mr. Mu and Chu Songyun vomited blood at the same time. They could not block this attack. The God King was an existence that had reached the peak of 2 universal laws. Ni Biluo said in a low voice, we should also make our move. Let that human escape. At least we can make him lose his civilization. Ha, this is the human civilization I remember. How terrifying, the old man said. The tributary of the river of time surged towards the life and death calamity master. The life and death calamity master's deathly power rushed towards the old man. If Nan Ling could not find Lu Yin, then she would destroy this universe. As the screeching sound rang out, the spiritualized universe continuously distorted and spiraled. Countless strings of sequence were torn apart. Master Greengrass's gaze cracked. Although this identity was fake, his feelings for the spiritualized universe were real. He was Mi Jin and also Greengrass, the protector of the spiritualized universe. However, he could only watch as the spiritualized universe was destroyed and rebooted. Nan Ling was not afraid of karma at all. At most, she could resolve it with time. Her hatred for humans and Lu Yin was enough for her to do this. Countless people in the spiritualized universe despaired as they watched the rebooted universe happen. However, even though the spiritualized universe was in despair, it was not the most critical moment for the three universes. What truly attracted the attention of the powerhouses was the Tian Yuan universe. It was the God King's real attack. It was also the red sword that Chu Songyun had taken out. The combination of the sword and the umbrella came from Hong Shuang. At this moment, an unimaginable power of the path of ruthlessness erupted. It was as if a woman slowly appeared in the universe's sky, replacing the starry sky and countless people's gazes. The God King was shocked. What kind of power was this? In the three universes, the cultivators of the path of ruthlessness subconsciously knelt down as if they were looking at the sky. Chu Songyun gripped the red umbrella tightly and used the handle as a sword. His body continuously withstood this terrifying path of ruthlessness, as if he was holding up the sky. Far away from the three universes, Red Hero's gaze was solemn. There was deep fear and dread in her eyes. This was Hong Shuang's power. She was the master of the second stronghold. She had created the path of ruthlessness and was invincible in this era. Chapter 4483. Each of the 9 base masters was extremely strong, and each of them was an existence that surpassed the legends. Countless people sought to become legends, but they did not know that legends also sought to be ordinary. What was ordinary? The rain fell. Everyone and all living things knew that it was rain. This was the ordinary. Above was heaven, below was earth. That was ordinary. The strength of a punch was strength. That was also ordinary. Ordinary was the least eye-catching. It was common knowledge. When legends became common knowledge, it was the most terrifying. In that era, the cultivators of the second stronghold cultivated the path of ruthlessness. Many people said that they were cultivating Hong Shuang's path. When the path of ruthlessness was mentioned, Hong Shuang was the only one that came to mind. Hong Shuang was not a person but a synonym for strength. She had become common knowledge in the second stronghold. It was also common knowledge for Red Hero. Betray Hong Shuang. How dare he? How could he be qualified? The one who could betray Hong Shuang was Wang Wen, not him. He was only used by Wang Wen to sneak attack Hong Shuang. What kind of person was worth Wang Wen waiting for countless years? This was Hong Shuang. Hong Shuang disappeared, but the path of ruthlessness that remained shone on the three universes. It became the only light in an unknown area. At this moment, even the power of death and the tributary of the river of time retreated. As Chu Songyun waved his hand, the path of ruthlessness drew a circle. It killed the God King, the life and death calamity, Ni Biluo, and Nan Ling. The 4 experts were targeted by the path of ruthlessness and attacked at the same time. There was a boom. The 3 universes erupted with a bright red light. In the distance, Red Hero's pupils shrank. An indescribable fear made him subconsciously take a few steps back, even though this power could not touch him. The God King was blasted back. The life and death calamity faced off with the power of death and was also blasted back. Even Ni Biluo's trident was almost shaken off. Only Nanling teleported away to avoid this power. The voice of the old man came from the tributary of the river of time. She's still so domineering, hee. Outside the 3 universes, Ni Biluo grabbed his trident and looked at the Tian Yuan universe in shock. He felt his heart palpitate. What kind of powerhouses existed in the human civilization? Ni Biluo had never fought with the human civilization and did not know the glory of the 9 bases. The life and death calamity palm was a direct confrontation with the emotionless Tao. Back when it fought with the 9th tower, it wasn't qualified to fight against the base master. But now, it finally experienced the base master's power. The godly king's killing intent became even thicker. It stared at Chu Songyun. There was only one strike of this power. Even if there was still power left, this person wouldn't be able to release it. However, the human civilization had once had such a powerful expert. They could not be allowed to live. Otherwise, their civilization would be finished if such an expert appeared again. Countless powerful creatures had gone against the ancient times. Only the heavens knew if there were any existences in the human civilization that had gone against the ancient times and returned. He couldn't leave any future troubles behind. Kill. The power of a deity king boiled under the starry skies. Chu Songyun coughed out blood as he gripped the umbrella hilt tightly. He roared and his face turned red. The power of the Tao of emotionlessness flashed and disappeared. The divine king immediately stopped and watched in surprise and bewilderment. Nibi Luo, master of life and death calamity, also stared at Chu Songyun. Chu Songyun smiled. Blood stained his lips and trickled down from the corners of his mouth. Drops of blood dripped onto the ground. Come on, I only have one attack. I really only have one attack. But which one of you is willing to take it? The divine king did not act rashly. The Tao of emotionlessness just now was too terrifying. If it attacked with all its strength, it was not confident that it could take it safely. If it was injured, the losses would outweigh the gains. Under Nibi Luo's feet, the bridge crossed the three universes. It looked at Chu Songyun from afar and also did not act rashly. Only Master of Life and Death Calamity moved, but the old man immediately stopped it. Chu Songyun was holding on. He gripped the umbrella hilt tightly and lowered his head. It was as if he could attack at any time. Blood flowed from the corners of his mouth to the sword hilt. His body continued to bleed. Mr. Mu looked at Chu Songyun's back as if he was looking at a second Lu Yin. The Tao of emotionlessness was not truly emotionless. Otherwise, why would Hong Shuang be the most emotional? The more emotionless a person was, the more emotional they were. Who could understand this sentence? Only the Tao of emotionlessness. Outside Xiang City, Lu Yin's body had completely declined. The stone monster felt that Lu Yin was already dead. This human had no aura. It looked at Lu Yin and then at the three universes. Just now, the power of the Tao of emotionlessness had shocked it as well. It did not even dare to look over. Something must have happened. Forget it, it had nothing to do with it. Should it leave first? This human should be dead. Without him, the other humans might not be able to find it. Even if they found it, it would not be easy to capture it. But if this human did not die and it escaped, what would it do if he came to settle the score with it? The stone monster was in a dilemma. 100,000 years. It did not seem that long. There was no need to take the risk. Yes, there was no need. Just as it thought of this, the void around Lu Yin fluctuated, and the entire universe seemed to sink. The stone monster felt dizzy as if it had lost its center of gravity. Then, it floated up again, and its soul went out of control. The stone monster subconsciously grabbed the city wall beside it and stared at Lu Yin in a daze. The void around Lu Yin was fluctuating more frequently. It could feel it, but when it looked at it, there was no fluctuation. Once it retracted its gaze, the feeling of floating appeared again. Damn it! What's going on? It asked itself. It had also broken through to the eternal realm and had seen other creatures break through, but it had never been this strange. It was as if the universe was changing because of him. In the universe, there was no difference between high and low. One could only use a point as a coordinate to distinguish one's surroundings. But at this moment, the stone monster could clearly feel that Lu Yin was the only one in that space. However, Lu Yin did not have any aura, and the injuries on his body were so severe that it felt like he would definitely die. It could see that this human was breaking through, but it had never seen such a method. Self-harm. Not only was Liu Yin's aura gone, but even his vitality was gone. He was like a corpse. However, the surrounding universe fluctuated faster and faster, and the entire space seemed to be moving. Suddenly, the stone monster understood that this was not a fluctuation, but a heartbeat. It was this human's heartbeat that was causing the universe to tremble. It could feel it because it could hear it. There was not much difference whether it looked or not. It could only listen. A heartbeat meant that Liu Yin was still alive. But wasn't this heartbeat a little too intense? Was this human supposed to have such a heartbeat? The larger the body, the more vigorous the life force, and the more powerful the heartbeat. No matter how strong a human was, his heartbeat should not be like this. It was resonating with the universe. However, Liu Yin's heartbeat was indeed so exaggerated that it made the stone monster think that the universe was fluctuating. Wait, if that was the case, then how strong was this human? Suddenly, vitality overflowed from Liu Yin's body like clouds parting and vanishing into thin air. The stone monster was stunned. His vitality was gone. Didn't this mean that this human was about to die? Or that he had completely fallen to the level of a scoundrel? But then, there was an explosive heartbeat that made the stone monster's heart beat as well. Its heart almost jumped out of its chest, and the stone monster almost shattered. Another surge of vitality emerged from Liu Yin's body. This surge of vitality was endless, and in an instant, it rushed into the sky as if it had opened up the 9 heavens. The ripples shook the surroundings. The stone monster looked up in shock. Was this a phenomenon? Legend had it that some strange creatures that broke through to the eternal realm could produce such phenomena. It had once been a thief and had come into contact with many civilizations, so it knew of this legend, but had never seen it before. And now, it had seen it. Vitality rose like the sea and opened up the clouds of the 9 heavens. This was a phenomenon that occurred when one broke through to the eternal realm. It was a phenomenon that one would never forget after hearing of, but it was destined to never see. Now, it had seen it. At this moment, the stone monster swore that it had found its home. That's right, the human civilization was its home, and it would not leave. The vitality suddenly shrank and entered its body in the blink of an eye. It was as if it had never appeared. Liu Yin exhaled, and his breath was like a cloud dragon that crushed the void and caused time to freeze. He had dispersed the vitality that he had obtained from the Master Realm battle force, and a vitality that truly belonged to his own essence emerged. The might of this vitality was far greater than before, and it was so powerful that he had never experienced it before. Whether it was his physical body, strength, or even life itself, they had all transformed. His flesh and blood were the cornerstone that carried everything. When his flesh and blood transformed, his own strength would also transform. After attaining eternal life, all the strength that Liu Yin had cultivated before had been broadened. Now, there was still the most important step, which was to comprehend the laws. Only by conforming to the laws of the universe could one truly step into eternal life. The invisible world could be slowly cultivated as one comprehended the laws of the universe, but this law had to be found now. It could be very fast, or it could be very slow. In the heaven's origin universe, Chu Songyun still maintained the same posture. Blood continued to flow, and the ruthless Tao continued to disappear. He maintained this posture for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. This forced the God King and Ni Beiluo to not dare to make a move during this time. In this kind of war, maintaining peace for an incense stick's time was unimaginable. The stronger one was, the more one could feel the threat of the ruthless Tao. However, Chu Songyun was not Hong Shuang. In the distance, a gust of wind swept past. Mr. Mu hurriedly tried to stop it, but the feather god's spear swept past him. He could only use his cauldron to resist. The feather god's spear struck the cauldron and forced Mr. Mu back. The gust of wind swept past Chu Songyun, and he fell to the ground while maintaining the same posture. He had already fainted. However, even though he had fainted, he still used his body to withstand the power of the ruthless Tao. His body had already been burned black by the ruthless Tao. This kind of pain was not inferior to cultivating the extreme agony technique. He did not reveal any flaws. The God King and Ni Bailuo did not dare to make a move, but the South Spirit was an exception. It could teleport and was not afraid of this power. As Chu Songyun fell to the ground, the threat of the ruthless Tao disappeared. The God King was furious. He felt that he had been played, and he attacked angrily. Mr. Mu gritted his teeth and pushed his cauldron to face the God King, but he was forced to retreat. The Heaven's Origin universe was exposed to the God King's terrifying power. The small boat kept shaking, and the Heaven's Origin universe's time was completely unstable. The tributaries of the River of Time were filled with vortexes. If not for the God King's misgivings about karma, the Heaven's Origin universe would have restarted. Even so, light spots appeared outside the Heaven's Origin universe, corresponding to the powerful cultivators of the Heaven's Origin universe. P.S. Bao Bao had been hospitalized with a fever since he was 20 years old. He has been busy until now, and he is still hospitalized. However, most of the examinations have been completed, and I owe 2 chapters. Today, I will make up for it. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Thank you. There were too many things to do during this period of time. Many things were delayed because of Bao Bao's illness. After making up for the 2 chapters that I owe, I am afraid that I will not be able to do more. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Sincerely. Chapter 4484. The Ancient God, Jiang Feng, Mr. Mu, Progenitor Qin, and other Eternal Realm cultivators. Chu Yi, Lu Yuan, Wu Tian, and the rest of the 3 realms. Wood God, Lu Tianyi, Celestial Victor, and the rest of the 3 sons. There were also the 8 paths, Zhong'an, Strength Beast, Su Wang, Shening, Zhu Mang, and other powerful beasts. The weakest was the Progenitor Realm. In other words, the God King had already locked onto the cultivators above the Progenitor Realm in the Tian Yuan universe and dealt them a fatal blow. One by one, the cultivators looked up at the starry sky. The specks of light approached like shooting stars. They were not fast, but besides Lu Yuan, no one could avoid them. The specks of light streaked across the sky, representing everyone's remaining lifespan. Lu Yuan was shocked, and he hurriedly shouted, "Quick, touch each other and take as many as you can." The ancient god did not move and merely looked up. This is the best outcome. Lu Yuan's body trembled. Hongyan Mavis looked at her own hands. Yes, this is the best outcome. With our lives, we can increase the karmic bindings. Even if it's just a tiny bit, it's still a contribution. Big Sis smiled. With little 7 gone, we'll be much more relaxed. We can increase the karmic bindings of this old monster so that it'll be easier for little 7 to deal with him in the future. Behind them, the members of Big Sis and Leon's armada, who had not been locked onto by the specks of light, rushed over and looked up at the specks of light. They also wanted to help Master Lu deal with this old monster in the future. They would increase the karmic bindings as much as possible. Just because the universe had not been rebooted, the karmic bindings were not that severe. They were not the only ones. People gathered everywhere in the Tian Yuan universe, but they were not waiting for Lu Yuan. Instead, they were increasing the God King's karmic bindings. No matter how much they increased, it was still a contribution. Since the 3 universes were destined to be destroyed, they might as well make their deaths worthwhile. The Outerverse Earth, Xenu Star, the Innerverse Astral Combat Academy, the Sword Sect, the Lingling Clan, Chaos God Mountain, the Starfall Sea, the Neoverse Sirius Sect, everlasting island, realm mountain, and more were all gathered. Luin had lived through a generation, and there were those who viewed him as a friend, master, and some who viewed him as an enemy. Now, the legacy had been passed down from generation to generation. Thousands of years had passed, and everyone viewed Luin as their master. Their trust in Luin and their determination to pass down the legacy had shaken the God King's understanding of human civilization, which had led to this calamity. If he was destined to die, he would die in a dazzling manner. Even an ant could bite an elephant to death. Every insignificant injury could eventually become a killing force. Long she stood beside a stone table in heaven's sky sect, gently brewing tea with a smile on her face, as if Luin was sitting there. Wendy Yushan looked at the meteor shower and smiled. Shua day night, Kai Jinxiang, Lu Tianmu, Ling Gong, Shiyu, Starsabil, Master Yuan, Xiao Luo, Master Shan, Gu Yan, Chu Jian, he ran, and the others were all looking at the same sky and the same meteor shower. Some of the light spots were aimed at them, while others were not. However, they knew that today was the end. Who would have thought that he would encounter such a desperate situation when human civilization was on the rise? This was a situation that even Luin could not resolve, so he decided to make them pay a bit more for him. There was no one who did not fear death. It was just that they had no choice but to press forward. In the continent of the 9 clouds, Uptalayu and the others saw the meteor shower. Godly kings were going to be buried in the Tian Yuan universe. They couldn't stop it. Goodbye, Luin. Brother Lu, goodbye. Little 7, Brother Lu, again see, hee, it seems like it's really over. The old man's voice was emotionless. Below, Uptalayu stood up shakily and spat out a mouthful of blood. He raised his hand and grabbed his shattered blade, wanting to charge forward one more time. The spiritualized universe had been reactivated, and the Tian Yuan universe had been buried. They were no exception, so they would pave the way for the future generations. He gripped his blade tightly and charged towards Nibulon. Even if he died, he wanted to see this old monster's strength and fight for a chance at survival. Blood Tower. Uptalayu shouted. Uptalayu's blood aura soared into the sky, and his will was iron-willed. At the very least, he had to force out this old monster's true strength. Suddenly, he shifted his gaze, but his body remained in place. Behind him, a shadow loomed over him as it flapped its wings. It was Nanling. Uptalayu turned around with difficulty and saw Nanling's sinister smile, her eyes filled with mockery. His head was separated from his body. Uptalayu's eyes widened. Blood Tower. He angrily pointed at Nanling. You bastard, you deserve to die. Nanling grabbed Uptalayu's head and teleported away. Uptalayu's body fell to the ground. His blood and vitality were overflowing from his body. Countless people from the Joxiao universe looked on with desolation in their hearts. Uptalayu was also dead. Nanling laughed maniacally and said in a shrill voice, after this battle, I will sleep for countless years, but this price is worth it. I will let your human civilization know the consequences of offending Xianling. Under its claws was Uptalayu's head, still dripping with blood. Uptalayu died with his eyes wide open. He wanted to force out Nibulon's strength for Uptalayu. Although there was a huge gap between them, even if he couldn't force out Nibulon's strength, he wanted to die in Nibulon's hands. He wanted Nibulon to increase the binding of the karma-binding fruit and increase Uptalayu's chances of survival. But he didn't expect to be killed by Nanling's sneak attack. His death was worthless. Uptalayu's eyes were gloomy. He had never wanted to kill Nanling and destroy Xianling so much. Even when he learned that Red Hero was a traitor in the Red Lotus Tomb, he didn't feel this strong. Red Lotus Tomb also originated from Xianling. Uptalayu clenched his fists. Xianling, he must destroy Xianling in this life. Nanling laughed maniacally, full of sarcasm. That human called Lu Yin escaped. What a ridiculous will. Disgusting, disgusting, human beings, you shouldn't exist. Then, it teleported and disappeared. Uptala Yu's pupils shrank. Not good. The next moment, Nanling appeared with Master Kyureng in front of it. Master Kyureng was fighting with two eternal bone realms from the death universe and could die at any time. He didn't expect Nanling to appear suddenly. He turned back and was greeted by Nanling's claws. Karma fell from the sky. Uptala Yu made a move, but it was too late. Nanling directly tore Master Kyureng's body into pieces. Blood stained the ground, and it teleported and disappeared. Karma only forced the two eternal bone realms to retreat. Uptala Yu couldn't track Nanling. It was almost impossible to teleport in this battlefield. In the distance, Qingyan hugged Jingmen Shangyu tightly. There was a rare look of fear in her eyes. She was afraid that Nanling would come and kill her mother. Her mother still had a chance of survival. She pressed the longevity vine on Jingmen Shangyu's body. Master Qin Chao closed his eyes. Absolute power could defeat any plan. He had done his best. What he lacked was time. But the time didn't come. He should be the next one. Karma fell from the sky. Uptala Yu also guessed that Nanling would be the next one. Master Qing Chao was the next target, so he protected Nanling in advance. But Master Qing Chao refused. He looked up at Uptala Yu and smiled faintly. If you kill me again, it won't be able to attack. Uptala Yu was shocked. The South Spirit was originally bound by karma. Previously, it had fought against the unknown, and then the human civilization. Now, it was constantly killing human masters, including the Blood Towers Shang Yu and Master Kyureng. No matter how one looked at it, its karma binding was close to perfection. Master Qing Chao took a deep breath. I'll use myself as the bait for the last step of the plan. At least, there will be one less master in this battle. Uptala, don't stop it. Uptala Yu stared at Master Qing Chao. Don't stop it. Master Qing Chao walked out of karma and looked at the Tianyuan universe. He had stayed in that universe for many years and witnessed the rise of Lu Yin. He was happy for Lu Yin that he could reach this step. If he had turned to the unknown for the survival of his civilization, he would have died long ago. If you were given enough time, you would have shocked the entire core space. Nanling appeared far away from Master Qing Chao. It grinned and its eyes were ferocious. With arrogance and ridicule, it said, "Human, do you really want to die?" Master Qing Chao looked at Nanling, mixed hairy bird. Do you believe that Xianling will be destroyed? And it will be destroyed by the human civilization. Ha ha ha, human, you are too arrogant. Jiao Lei was like this, but Jiao Lei was invincible. What makes you think you can do that? Nanling mocked. Master Qing Cao's lips curled up. Because you are stupid. Nanling's eyes widened. You don't even dare to escape. You only want to die. Do you want me to kill you? It looked at Uptala Yu. Do you also want me to kill him? Ha ha ha, human, you all want me to kill him. If I kill him, I won't be able to attack you anymore, right? Ha ha ha, you are also afraid. Admit it. You all want to use his death to protect yourselves. Ha ha ha. Despicable race, disgusting inheritance. Since you all want me to kill him, let him be the beginning of my punishment to the human civilization. I promise that if I encounter the human civilization in the core space in the future, I will kill without mercy. Then, a feather spear pierced toward Master Qing Chao. The feather spear could have been very fast, but it was very slow now. It was unknown whether it was a coincidence or on purpose, but the feather spear pierced Master Qing Chao at the same time as the meteor shower of the deity king of the Tianyuan universe. Nanling was cooperating with the deity king to bury the human civilization. It wanted to let the human civilization know that anyone could survive in the core space, except for humans. Countless people looked at this scene and felt sad. They saw the feather spear approaching Master Qing Chao and vaguely saw the meteor shower falling in the Tianyuan universe. At this moment, even if Nib Luo controlled the life and death calamity, they did not make a move. This would be the second turning point for the human civilization. It would completely end their hope of rising up. Ironically, the one who shouted the loudest was still a mortal feather. That cry and that scene would become the final image in the hearts of countless people. Master Qing Chao faced death calmly. To Nanling, it was very sad, but to him, it was a counterattack. He was using his own death to counterattack for the human civilization. The feather spear descended, and the meteor shower of the deity king of the Tianyuan universe descended. Master Qing Chao looked at the feather spear. His glabella turned cold as it spread throughout his body. His eyes looked at the ground, as though he was looking at the entire human civilization. Chapter 4485. The sky brightened. It illuminated the faces of countless people. This was the first time the sun shone on everyone since the war began. Master Qing Chao also felt it. The warmth quickly melted the chill brought by the feather god spear. In front of him, the feather god spear floated quietly, unable to move an inch. He grabbed the feather god spear with one hand and punched toward the east with the other. This punch crossed the stars and descended upon the Tianyuan universe, shattering the God King meteor shower from the side. In the Tianyuan universe, countless people waited for the light spot to fall and end their lives. What they waited for was a gust of wind. When they opened their eyes again, the light spot was gone. They were stunned. What was going on? Senior, if you die like this, I will be very distressed. There are many things that have not been resolved. A calm voice entered Master Qing Chao's ears. Master Qing Chao stared at the person who grabbed the feather god spear in a daze. Lu Yin. The person who appeared was Lu Yin. Although his clothes were stained with blood, he looked even more elegant. His eyes were no longer desperate. Instead, there was a deep chill, as if he was unfathomable. Lu Yin looked at Nanling and saw the disbelief in her eyes. He exerted force, and with a bang, the feather god's spear shattered. He turned to look at Master Qing Chao and smiled. How should I address you? Master Qing Chao? Or me Jin Yu? Master Qing Chao looked at Lu Yin and the feather god's spear that had shattered into pieces. He let out a deep breath and smiled. You can call me Qing Chao. Lu Yin nodded. Senior, please rest for a while. Leave the rest to me. Master Qing Chao did not refute. He saw the familiar Lu Yin, the Master Lu who was confident in controlling everything and was once invincible in the Tianyuan universe. Although Lu Yin was still young at that time and was invincible in his limited knowledge, that state represented what he knew at that time. His current state also represented what he knew at that time. But why did he not feel his aura? Master Qing Chao could not understand Lu Yin, so he did not look. Countless people saw Lu Yin appear. They were happy and sad. Lu Yin was beaten so badly before, and his clothes were still stained with blood. How long had it been? The injuries left by the eternal life realm were not so easy to heal. They would rather Lu Yin run away. But why did they have an inexplicable confidence when they looked at Lu Yin at this moment? Life and death. Nib Luo looked at Lu Yin had changed. He had broken through the eternal life. Qing Lianyu heaved a sigh of relief. Had he finally broken through? When he was a scoundrel, he was able to fight against an existence that was compatible with the laws of the two universes. As for how he was now, let's wait and see. The fact that he was able to grab the feather god's spear with one hand was enough to make people gasp in shock. The feather god's spear was Xianling's ultimate skill. It was unstoppable and could break through anything. Although it was a little exaggerated to say that, it also proved how powerful the feather god's spear was. All along, the feather god's spear of the same cultivation level as Xianling either dodged or took it head-on. There was no one who could catch it. Lu Yin had actually grabbed Nanling's feather god's spear. This was the reason why they had fallen silent, and it was also the reason why Nanling found it unbelievable. "You dare to come back?" Nanling screamed, her gaze sinister. "That's fine too. If I let you all die together, human civilization should be completely severed." Lu Yin raised his head and looked at Nanling. "Mixed feather bird, I will definitely exterminate your celestial plume tribe." The South Spirit sneered, "You're about to die and you still dare to speak nonsense. Even the 9th base master couldn't do it, what about you?" Lu Yin's lips curled up, "Yes, just me. Courting death." Nanling barked, and her feather god spear stabbed towards Lu Yin. At the same time, the surrounding void distorted as she used her invisibility technique. Invisible world. Lu Yin's breakthrough wasn't something that she didn't care about. On the contrary, she cared a lot about it. Lu Yin grabbed her feather god's spear with one hand, causing her to be shocked. This battle was going to be difficult. But no matter what, even if she couldn't win, she could just teleport away. What could this human do? Lu Yin's eyes flashed, and he opened his heavenly eye. The sky suddenly darkened, and a purple eye force descended, catching Nanling off guard. At this moment, the eye force was so strong that it seemed to be able to suppress the sky. Everyone's heart sank, and they felt as if the sky was collapsing. This eye power was more than 100 times stronger than Lu Yin's oppressive life eye force, and even the Nan spirit was unable to break free from it. However, it only lasted for a moment, as this eye power could only suppress it for an instant. Just as it was about to teleport away, Lu Yin appeared below it and took advantage of that moment to grab its claws. Nanling's entire body turned cold, and she immediately transformed into 1,000 feathers. Lu Yin looked up, and he exerted strength in his palm, swinging his arm fiercely. Nanling's claws were directly shattered, and she cried out in pain. 1,000 Nanling flew in all directions, and Lu Yin's arms suddenly dropped down. A terrifying force instantly shattered the surroundings, and everyone saw a strange scene. He had used his strength to forcefully pull down the universe's stars, covering the entire area of the Nanling's 1,000 feathers. The entire area was like a water droplet that was dragged down by him. Within the water droplet, Lu Yin's strength swayed, extending from his swinging arm. His strength rushed upwards, and out of the 1,000 Nanling, 999 of them were instantly shattered. Only one Nanling was stirred up by the force, and its body spun continuously. Its feathers were torn apart, and its flesh was torn apart. Its head, body, wings, and claws were all torn to pieces by the terrifying force. Finally, it turned into a mixture of blood and feathers that scattered across the sky. The blood dripped onto Lu Yin's body like mottled plum blossoms. It was beautiful yet bloody, and a rain of blood fell from the sky. Countless people watched in a daze, unable to believe what they were seeing. They watched Lu Yin shatter a Nanling in the blink of an eye. How was this possible? Controlling the life and death calamities, Nib Luo, and even old man He looked at Lu Yin in disbelief. What kind of strength was this? The Nanling was not weak. No matter what, it was in accordance with the laws of two universes, and it was an existence close to the peak. Even if it could not compare to them, the difference would not be too great. Furthermore, with its teleportation and thousand feathers, thousand transformations, it would not be a problem for it to escape if it could not defeat Luin. But it had actually been torn to pieces. Impossible. How could this person be so powerful after breaking through to eternal life? In the Tianyuan universe, the God King also stared blankly, and in that instant, endless fear of Luin rose within him. This human would either die here today, or he would not be an enemy. The human civilization cheered, as did countless people in the Nina Firmament's universe. Qinglian Shangyu laughed. Jingmen Shangyu lay in Qingyun's arms, looking up at the sky and laughing as well. Grandmaster Qingchao closed his eyes. It was only at this moment that he completely relaxed. It really is terrifying. Under the sky, Luin lowered his arm, and in his palm was the shattered claw of the Nanling, mixed with blood. Shattering the Nanling in the blink of an eye seemed simple, but in fact, he had calculated it many times in his mind. The Nanling had been severely injured before, which allowed Luin to understand its body's defenses. Now that it had broken through to immortality, it had used its eye power to suppress the sneak attack, giving him a chance to catch it in an instant. The moment he caught it, Luin had actually used his greatest strength, and thousand feathers, thousand transformations was actually too late. But outsiders could not see it. Breaking through to immortality had also increased Lu Yin's strength by more than 100 times. Originally, his strength was enough to suppress ordinary existences in accordance with the laws of two universes. Now, his strength was almost equal. It could be confirmed that there was no existence in accordance with the laws of two universes. If there was, then it would be an existence that specialized in strength. For example, the Nanling, Nib Luo, and Master of Life and Death Calamity were far inferior to him in terms of strength. The Nanling's invisible world was actually very simple. It was the conservation of energy. If the energy of a space was deprived, it had to be replaced with other energy. It had used this conservation of energy to break through his previous attack. However, when the energy exceeded the limit of its conservation, this invisible world would be instantly broken. Lu Yin's strength had easily surpassed it. He had killed the Nanling in the blink of an eye, but the process had already started from the first time he had fought the Nanling. Lu Yin knew this, but others did not. They had only seen the shock of Lu Yin killing the Nanling. The rain of blood that covered the sky had become their most enthusiastic cheer. Lu Yin slowly raised his head and looked at Nib Luo, then at Master of Life and Death Calamity. He then looked at the God King of the Tian Yuan universe. Old man, help me stall Nib Luo. I want to kill Master of Life and Death Calamity. The tributary of the river of time boiled over. How domineering. Who dares to say that they can kill Master of Life and Death Calamity? Kid, I have high hopes for you. Nib Luo will not hinder you. Many thanks. Lu Yin suddenly teleported and appeared in front of Master of Life and Death Calamity. He looked at the giant skeleton that stood between heaven and earth and punched out. This punch caused the void to shatter, and an absolute darkness shot towards Master of Life and Death Calamity. In front of Master of Life and Death Calamity, the black light in the plaza was still shining brightly, but it was broken by this punch. This punch landed directly on Master of Life and Death Calamity's head, causing it to tilt back. Previously, when Lu Yin had fought Master of Life and Death Calamity, he had not been able to move him at all. Master of Life and Death Calamity raised a hand and unleashed the seal of life and death. Lu Yin raised a hand as well. His arm withered, but it quickly recovered and he struck out with a palm. Bang! There was a loud bang as the seal of life and death was shattered by Lu Yin's palm. A terrifying force struck Master of Life and Death Calamity's skeletal palm, causing it to split apart. Master of Life and Death Calamity was shocked. What kind of strength was this? It's impossible for a human to have such strength. Your body can't even withstand it. You've just broken through, and you're only compatible with one law of the universe at most. How can you do this? Master of Life and Death Calamity could not believe it, but at the same time, he understood what Nan Ling had encountered. Even Master of Life and Death Calamity would not be able to withstand this strength, let alone Nan Ling. Lu Yin clenched his fist. Nonsense. He then punched out without any fanciful moves. He used pure strength to break through the enemy. Master of Life and Death Calamity grabbed the black plaza and slammed it towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin's fist slammed into the black plaza, and the enormous force forced both him and Master of Life and Death Calamity to retreat. Master of Life and Death Calamity's other skeletal palms slammed out horizontally. Lu Yin's body rippled as he transformed into an even larger version of himself. One hand easily blocked the seal of life and death, while the other extended out of the ninth firmament and struck towards the heaven's origin universe and the God King. This was because the God King had also made his move. Lu Yin wanted to fight 1 against 2, and he had to fight 1 against 2. Otherwise, the God King would be unstoppable. Around the God King, specks of light turned into cones that pierced towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin's heart and Death Calamity's power had already skyrocketed before he had broken through. Now that he had broken through to immortality, it had transformed in one fell swoop. Combined with his strength, he scattered the God King's specks of light with a single palm and pressed down on the God King. The God King was stunned. How was this possible? Chapter 4486. At this moment, no one could believe that Lu Yin was not at a disadvantage in a 1-on-2 fight. His willpower was no less terrifying than his transformed strength. His breakthrough was not as simple as a transformation of his life. Everyone was curious, what kind of law had Lu Yin conformed to? Even if he had broken through, the transformation should not have been so great. His strength and willpower had both transformed, which required cultivation. Breaking through to immortality could be done quickly, but it was not a comprehensive transformation. Immortality was a transformation of one's life, not a transformation of one's strength. What was going on with this person? A giant arm traversed the universe from the ninth firmament to the Tian Yuan universe. The palm struck the God King, forcing him to retreat. Countless people in the Tian Yuan universe stared at the arm. It was as if the entire universe had been absorbed into it. Was that Master Lu? Lu Yin had once absorbed the Tian Yuan universe into his body using willpower, and they had seen this scene more than once. But this time, it was especially huge. God King, if you participate in this battle, I will bury your civilization with me. Lu Yin shouted, his voice echoing through the 3 universes and ringing in everyone's ears. The people of the Tian Yuan universe were excited. Master Lu was still there. Countless cultivators in the ninth firmament cheered. The spiritualized universe was about to be rebooted, and spacetime was shattering, but this did not dampen their excitement. It was as if as long as Lu Yin was there, they would be confident regardless of victory or defeat. Countless motes of light revolved around the God King's body and combined together to form circles. These circles combined again and again to form a white chain with a bell attached to it. This bell was formed from the motes of light, and it shot towards Lu Yin. The deathly stillness of the samsara palm was suppressed by Lu Yin's willpower. The God King held the black plaza, and the dark light of the deathly stillness surged out to resist Lu Yin. Lu Yin's strength was berserk, and he kept pressuring the black plaza. As the deathly stillness grew, he bent his fingers, and life energy surged out from his body like a sea, resisting the deathly stillness. The samsara palm was shocking, and even his life energy was different from that of an ordinary eternal realm cultivator. How had this human broken through? Lu Yin clenched his other hand into a fist, and the stars around him rotated. Countless stars shrank and turned into universes. He stepped on a star chart and used his civilization as a constellation as he punched out. He did not know what the Divine King's law of compatibility was, nor did he need to know. Today, he would let them see what it meant to break through all laws with one force. The starry fist crossed the universe and directly bombarded the white chain. The bell on the chain was smashed by the fist. Flowing Night God was stupefied. He had actually shattered the Divine Monarch's laws. It wasn't easy to deal with Samsara's attacks either, and the life force within his body continued to surge endlessly. Luin struck out with his other palm, using strength as a foundation and stacking as a technique. It was the overlaying stacks path that he hadn't used in a long time. This overlaying stacks path was different from when he had first started cultivating. This overlaying stacks path not only stacked strength, but also life force. With this palm, the black square remained unharmed, but the white bone arm holding the black square cracked inch by inch. Even the life and death calamity palm couldn't withstand it. Luin stared at the samsara palm. Under his celestial eye, the samsara palm was constantly on guard, but it couldn't guard against Crow. The black line spread out, enveloping the life or death calamity palm and then spinning. Crow turned around. The samsara palm immediately turned around. His enormous body suddenly turned around like a giant stirring up a river, causing the entire universe to tremble. Luin took advantage of this opportunity to appear in front of the samsara palm. Just like how he had heavily injured Nanling, he used Crow to immobilize the samsara palm. Crow immobilized the samsara palm, and Luin struck out with both palms. Palm after palm struck the samsara palm's body, causing the bones to continuously crack. Lu Yin's willpower also became incomparably vast, and it wasn't any weaker than the samsara palm's. Suddenly, countless white dots of light swept over from behind. It was the Divine Monarch. Lu Yin's eye power spread out, and his external pupil avatar spread out. The Divine Monarch's white dots of light bombarded the external pupil avatar. Now that he had 20 pieces of black armor, he was barely able to block one side. Lu Yin could have teleported away, but he wanted to test the Divine Monarch's strength, which was why he had used the armor pieces to resist. The white dots of light were scattered from the chain that had been blasted apart by Lu Yin's fist. However, the chain was formed from dots of light, so even if they were blasted apart, it wouldn't affect its attack power. With a whoosh, the armor pieces forcibly resisted the white dots of light without being damaged. These white dots of light had yet to reach the level of conforming to the 3 laws of the universe, so the Divine Monarch was still holding back. However, this attack had saved the samsara palm. Little 7. Patriarch Lu Yuan's voice traveled over. He had teleported to the ninefold universe and brought Mr. Mu with him. Lu Yin looked over. Mr. Mu pushed out a cauldron. Use this. Lu Yin's eyes burned with passion. The ninth wall suppression tool, the turbid treasure, was a cauldron that could gather the wishes of all living beings in the universe and combine them with the universe, allowing one's wishes to become one. Mr. Mu had once cultivated the unity of heart and will during the tribulation stage's great circle, reaching the level of scoundrel. He had relied on this cauldron to cultivate, and Lu Yin could also use this cauldron. However, this cauldron alone wasn't enough. Senior Azure Lotus. Lu Yin looked in a certain direction and said something. There, Azure Lotus Protector nodded and closed his eyes. The surrounding karma contracted. Above Lu Yin's head, the skeletal arm slammed down with the seal of life and death. At the same time, a black light twined around the seal of life and death, as if adding a layer of darkness to the seal. Lu Yin looked up and suddenly teleported away. The seal of life and death missed. The samsara palm hadn't expected Lu Yin to dodge. Right, he remembered that this human could teleport. Previously, he had to use himself as bait when facing their attacks and couldn't escape. Now that he had broken through to immortality, he didn't need to escape. In fact, this human had always been able to teleport. Lu Yin teleported to Mr. Mu's side and looked at the cauldron. He raised his hand and pushed it out. Then, he teleported to the Tianyuan universe. The power of will enveloped the Tianyuan universe. The entire Tianyuan universe was within Lu Yin's body, and countless people could finally see Lu Yin clearly. Sure enough, the attack just now had come from him. Lu Yin looked at the God King as the unity of heart and will expanded. The God King was apprehensive and retreated. The Samsara palm wanted to intervene, but Azure Lotus Protector appeared and blocked his path. Your opponent is me. You again. The Samsara palm struck with the seal of life and death. Azure Lotus Protector raised his hand and struck out with a palm, compressing the laws and meeting force with force. With a bang, the ninefold universe shook. The violent winds crushed the broken mother tree, causing Azure Lotus Protector to feel sad. The mother tree had protected the ninefold universe for countless years, but now, it had finally been destroyed. In the Tianyuan universe, Lu Yin released his eye power, and purple light surrounded the God King. Human, you can't win this war, even if you break through to eternal life, the God King shouted. Lu Yin stared at the God King. Your mother tree is useless now. The God King was shocked. How do you know? It's you. During the battle between the divine world and Leking, the mother tree had been ambushed and rendered useless. The God King had been looking for the culprit, but it had never thought that it would be Lu Yin. Lu Yin sneered. I know where you are. Remember, I will completely destroy your divine world. With that, his body suddenly expanded. The power of will and the unity of heart and will formed not just one universe, but three. The unity of heart and will instantly enveloped countless creatures, including the God King. The God King was apprehensive, furious, and terrified. This human had only just broken through, and yet he was already like this. What would happen if he was allowed to continue growing? Furthermore, this human knew the location of the divine world. The God King couldn't guarantee that the invisible unknown would be able to help them leave. This human had to die. Suddenly, the universe shrank. The God King was shocked. What was going on? Right below it, a cauldron slowly rotated. The God King saw that it was not unfamiliar, it was a turbid treasure. At the start of the war, a human had used this turbid treasure to resist its power. The God King had been shocked by the treasure's strength and thought of the legendary guardian turbid treasures. The God King had wanted to take it away after this battle, but it had not expected things to turn out this way. This turbid treasure could actually devour the universe. The God King continued to expand, and the motes of light shot out in all directions, but it could not escape. The cauldron was not devouring the universe, but rather, it was devouring will. This cauldron could assist in the cultivation of will, and it could also devour and release will. Mr. Mu had always used this cauldron to resist the various experts, but that was not its true purpose. Mr. Mu did not have much will left, so he could not fully utilize it. Now was the time for the cauldron to truly shine. Countless motes of white light shot out from the God King's body, followed by a bell that resisted the cauldron's devouring of will. Lu Yin teleported and appeared right above the cauldron, pressing down with one palm. Get out of here. A terrifying power accompanied by will was slapped into the cauldron. The God King instantly entered the cauldron. The moment it entered the cauldron, the boundless karma phenomenon suddenly extended outwards. Lu Yuan led the Azure Lotus Protector to the top of the cauldron. Karma, Red Lotus Tomb. The Red Lotus closed, sealing not the Azure Lotus Protector, but the cauldron. At the same time, Mr. Mu was also brought over by Lu Yuan to lay down the town's rules. Even though this rule seemed redundant after the karma phenomenon and will suppression, it was still an extra hand. Lu Yin's goal was to temporarily seal the God King so that he would have enough time to kill the samsara. Now, the God King had finally been sealed. Night Flow had witnessed the entire process, and the God King had actually been sealed. This was the God King, an invincible God King. The envoy of balance was very powerful, and the God King was willing to work for him. It had wavered between the divine realm and the unknown, but it had never thought that the God King would be weaker than the envoy of balance. Now, the God King had actually been sealed. Chapter 4487. Now, only Nibiluo and Samsara Master were left to threaten humanity. With the old man holding Nibiluo back, Luin only focused on Samsara Master. How long can you seal it? It's very strong, but it's still far from using its full strength, Samsara Master said. Luin clenched his fist, I'll kill you before it comes out. He then stepped forward, clenched his fist, and stepped on the star chart. Civilization as the stars, he unleashed the starry fist. The world was resplendent, and light flashed for an instant. The starry fist punched out at Samsara Master. Samsara Master struck out with the seal of life and death. The power of death drew a black border, causing the seal to look solid. In the eyes of countless people, Luin was like a moth flying into a flame, rushing towards Samsara Master's enormous figure. Even the seal of life and death was much larger than Luin. With a bang, a surging force swept out in all directions, boiling the void and tearing the world apart. The power of death turned into countless black rays that swept out in all directions. Each ray was enough to wipe out an entire direction. Luin was enveloped by the black rays, and although he was small, his power continued to rush upwards. He rose into the sky, and with a low roar, an incomparably terrifying power swept across the sky, shattering the endless black rays and the seal of life and death. Samsara Master took a step back in shock. Luin stepped into the air, each step leaving a deep mark in the starry sky. Every step felt like he was stepping on Samsara Master's heart, and he punched out again. Samsara Master's left arm slapped out a black plaza, and the power of death condensed above it, turning it into a black cube. It was simple and plain, but its power covered the sky. Lu Yin's fist slammed into the black square while he raised his other hand and struck out with overlaying stacks. The black plaza suddenly rotated, and the seal of life and death emitted light at its center. It was as if it was replicating itself, constantly appearing to block Lu Yin's path. Lu Yin's palm struck the seal of life and death. It shattered, and continued to shatter, but seals of life and death continued to appear. The world was shrouded in darkness at this moment, and only one person was using his power to break dawn. He struck out a beam of light that illuminated the universe and illuminated everyone's faces. As Lu Yin's figure disappeared, Samsara Master's palm struck the black plaza, but it missed. Not good. It turned back and saw the resplendent starry fist, and at this moment, it seemed to see the endless stars revolving. Crack. His skull cracked open. This punch landed on the same spot that Lu Yin had attacked earlier. Back then, it hadn't been able to injure Lu Yin, but now, it had cracked open. The Samsara palm retreated once again and swung its arm at Lu Yin. Lu Yin teleported once more and reappeared on the right side of the body. He struck out with a palm, shattering the bones. The bone palm descended, and Lu Yin teleported away. When he reappeared, he was right in front of the leg bone, and he kicked out. The bone in the leg bone was broken, and the Samsara cultivator almost collapsed. Its gigantic body brought about a terrifying threat, but it also became a burden at this moment. The life or death calamity palm roared. A fierce look appeared on the skeleton's face. Black deathly stillness flowed down its head like blood, filling its shattered bones. Black light covered it in a trench coat. Lu Yin punched the beast's back. Although the beast's bones were still broken, it was not as easy as before. The bone palm slapped down from above. Luin teleported away. He still failed. Nibiluo was apprehensive. Although the life and death calamity palm was still at the pinnacle of two universes' laws and couldn't break through that layer of restriction, it wasn't weak at all. Yet, he was unexpectedly beaten up. If this continued, the beast would be torn apart. That was Lu Yin's plan. He wanted to tear apart the samsara cultivator and completely shatter it. Only then could the beast die. Otherwise, this old monster might very well survive. Bang! 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 The samsara cultivator's gigantic skeletal body continuously shattered into pieces like rain. The Eternal Realm skeletons under its command wanted to help, but they were held back by the Grass Grandmaster and Ba Rong. Ba Rong came out. This fish had been hiding from the battle all this time, but now that it saw Lu Yin's ferocity, it was afraid that it would be punished later. Things were different now. In the past, Lu Yin had been a scoundrel who didn't care how many creatures killed him. Now, however, he was an Eternal Realm. Everyone was paying attention to Lu Yin's invincible strength, but they didn't notice that the karmic bindings on his wrist had increased significantly after he killed Nan Ling. Following that, the bindings continued to increase after he fought the Samsara Cultivator and the God King. If he killed another Eternal Realm skeleton, no one knew how long his karmic bindings would last. The Samsara Cultivator considered this point and summoned all the skeletons under its command to head towards the black plaza above its bone palm. It wanted to learn from the Grass Grandmaster and use the deaths of these creatures to fill Lu Yin's karmic bindings so that Lu Yin couldn't attack again. The human experts saw this and tried their best to stop it. Lu Yin also avoided the black plaza and attacked the Samsara Cultivator's body. With Blink, the Samsara Cultivator was completely passive. However, there was still a distance to go before he could defeat it. Let's see how long he could endure. All things are born and move. The Samsara Cultivator growled, and the pure darkness on the surface of its body added a touch of light. Before any creature was born, it was in darkness. Only after it was born would there be light. This was the law of the universe that the Samsara Cultivator was compatible with. Its constantly broken body began to repair itself. Lu Yin's expression changed. It could actually repair itself. The Samsara Cultivator slapped its bone palm horizontally, grabbed the black plaza, and smashed it towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin exhaled and disappeared with Blink. When he reappeared, he was already behind the Samsara Cultivator. He raised his hand and pointed. His fingertip touched the skeleton and touched the flow of a deathly still force. The Samsara Cultivator was constantly consuming Lu Yin's strength, and it was also using the deaths of the other skeletons to increase Lu Yin's karmic binding. Thus, it had never used the law of the universe. Lu Yin was also observing the direction of its power. The Samsara Cultivator was forced to use the law of the universe, and Lu Yin could also see the flow of deathly still force in its body. This finger was not destructive, but rather an injection of life energy. Although life energy was not active, it contained activity. This was the greatest source of life transformation and eternal life. Many Eternal Realm cultivators did not care about life energy and only thought that it could strengthen their bodies. They cared more about the law of the universe, the invisible world, and even innate gifts. In reality, life energy was extremely important. Without life energy, there would be no eternal life. Lu Yin's life energy was especially special, and his breakthrough had produced a phenomenon. Previously, he had continuously fought the Samsara Cultivator and tried to use his life energy to suppress the deathly still force. That made things easier. He continued to inject life energy into the Samsara Cultivator's skeleton to end the flow of deathly still force and restrain the Samsara Cultivator's power. The injection of life energy was like a nail hammering into the Samsara Cultivator's body. The Samsara Cultivator knew that it was not good and wanted to force it out. The deathly still force was like a waterfall, trying to wash away its body. However, it had forgotten that Luin had also cultivated the deathly still force. Although this eternal realm body had been stripped of its deathly still force, it did not mean that Luin did not understand this force. The deathly still force washed over the samsara cultivator again and again, but it could not easily erase the life energy. It also could not keep up with Lu Yin's speed of teleportation. At first, the life energy was scattered, but later on, the samsara cultivator's skeleton was filled with life energy. They were very close to each other, making it extremely difficult for the deathly still force to circulate. Luin teleported right in front of the samsara cultivator, and a sea of life energy surged out of his body and turned into a surging wave of air that bombarded the samsara cultivator. The samsara cultivator clashed with the black plaza. Suddenly, the wave of air was dragged around the black plaza and accompanied by Lu Yin's palm, striking the samsara cultivator's side. The wave of air was a type of life energy that originated from Lu Yin's body. They were connected and different from ordinary forces. The samsara cultivator only had time to raise his left arm to block. With a bang, the wave of air shook, and the countless strands of life energy that had been nailed into the samsara cultivator's body erupted. With the life energy as the center, they connected with the wave of air, transmitting power and superimposing strength. Crack, crack, crack. Countless shattering sounds rang out as the samsara cultivator's body suddenly collapsed. It angrily swung the black plaza at Luin. Luin looked up and used his external pupil incarnation. Bang! The terrifying collision caused the sky to collapse, and the giant samsara cultivator collapsed. Even with its own laws, it could not quickly repair itself as the endless life energy within its body continued to wreak havoc. Luin took a step forward and appeared above the samsara cultivator's head. His withered body recovered as he grasped the sky and played with the universe. He tore a hole in the sky, and with an unimaginable force, he viciously slammed it down and directly bombarded the samsara cultivator's head. The samsara cultivator looked up and watched as the force fell. The giant and the ant had changed roles. In the past, the samsara cultivator had been a giant while Luin had been an ant. Now, Luin was a giant while the samsara cultivator was an ant. At this moment, countless gazes were watching in shock. The force seemed to have solidified, and it even seemed to drag down the square inch. Even Hihi, Ni Biluo, and the others had never seen such a terrifying force before. This force wanted to completely crush the samsara cultivator into dust. As the force fell, the samsara cultivator exerted more force and shattered the black plaza. A vast amount of deathly still energy surged out from within. This deathly still energy had appeared once before, and it had almost caused the Blue Lotus Emperor to seal himself in the Red Lotus tomb. This deathly still energy had brought despair to the three universes. As the battle continued, the samsara cultivator had thought that the deathly still energy would be consumed as well, but there was still more. Luin stared down, and sure enough, it had appeared. The deathly still energy that could use the great death shift would not be consumed so quickly. His goal was to force out this energy so that the samsara cultivator's trump cards would be revealed one by one. Come! A huge force crashed down vertically, and the deathly still energy flowed upwards. In the distance, Red Hero saw a spectacular scene. The two terrifying forces collided, and the collision caused the three universes to sway and almost scatter. At that moment, the square inch was lit up. Red Hero's face was gloomy. Luin had actually broken through to eternal life. Moreover, he had killed Nan Ling and sealed the God King. Now, he was facing the deathly still energy of the samsara cultivator. His combat strength was not below Red Hero's, and he deserved to die. In the Nina Firmament's universe, countless people were blinded by the dazzling light. Heaven and earth shook as if the universe was about to collapse. The samsara cultivator's bones continued to shatter, and he was also under the pressure of the deathly still energy. As the black deathly still torrent rushed into the starry sky, the power was shaken away. He looked up. Did he win? Luin had disappeared. In the direction of the ninfirmament's universe, the void was shattered endlessly like fish scales that stretched for an unknown distance. They did not see Luin. Where was Master Lu? Chapter 4488. Nibi Luo and Hihi suddenly looked in another direction. Over there. Samsara Master slowly turned around and saw Luin smiling at him. Amazing. I have to say that I can't handle that deathly still energy. However, how much can you handle? Luin kicked out, his body piercing through Samsara Master's neck and almost knocking his head off. Luin had already teleported away when the deathly energy surged towards him. He wasn't stupid enough to face it head-on. This energy didn't belong to Samsara Master, it belonged to the Death Universe. It was like the energy beneath Joy City. If he wasn't wrong, this was a life-saving technique from the Death Universe. It was close to matching the 3 laws of the universe, and even if he could withstand it, he would have to pay a price. Why would he take it head-on if he could teleport? This is too depressing, the old man gloated. Nibi Luo took the opportunity to throw his trident at Luin, but he was swept away by the tributary of the river of time. I said I wouldn't let you interfere. Nibi Luo stared at the old man. You're playing with fire. You're not an exception. You're destined to be his enemy, so why are you helping him? Nibi Luo reminded him. It's just a deal. I can give you the deal you want, but this human cannot live. Nibi Luo was furious. This bastard. He hated the word because it was filled with mockery. Samsara Master's body shrank by half, and Luin repeated the same move, continuing to inject vitality into his body to see how many more times he could withstand. The black plaza was still in his hand, and he didn't know how much deathly energy was left inside. Luin was also afraid, so he had to be careful. I'll leave, human, Samsara Master spoke, his voice echoing throughout the world. Luin looked up and didn't reply, continuing to inject vitality into his body. Samsara Master shouted, Do you want to die, human? Luin still ignored him. Samsara Palm roared, You'll end up like Pan. Lu Yin's movement suddenly stopped, and it wasn't just him, everyone who heard this looked at Samsara Palm. Pan, the war god's name, was a legend from the Nine Walls era, but it had been buried in history. And now, Lu Yin had found this piece of history. He knew about the legend of Pan, he knew about the hot-bloodedness of guarding one side, only one man and one horse, and he knew about those 2 words. I'll do it. Just these 2 words allowed him to reach the peak, even though this peak was very short. What did you say? Lu Yin looked at Samsara Palm and asked in a low voice. The life and death calamity Palm's huge head was slightly bent, and half of his throat was broken. His body was also swaying. If you really bring death upon yourself, your ending will be the same as that plate. No one can save you. You are very strong, human. I have to admit that even if you were in the era of the 9 bases, you would be able to stun the entire era and even fight for the position of Fort Lord. But your base masters are all dead. That Pan, who relied on his own strength to guard an area, slaughtered the universe until there was no light, and blood dyed the area. So what? He still died. Compared to Pan, you are far inferior. It's impossible to stop death. Lu Yin stared at Samsara Palm. Pan. The master of life and death calamity said, You humans have a legend in the 9th base, known as the God of War. He was extremely powerful. At that time, even I didn't have the qualifications to fight him. His strength is beyond your imagination, but do you know the ending? He died, and his blood ran dry. He wanted to die standing, but I did not give him the chance. Those humans climbed up to him one by one, wanting to give him the last dignity, or perhaps to preserve the dignity of your human civilization. Let me tell you, it's impossible. I let those humans step on the bones of their companions and let them use their own lives to fill the abyss. I let their bones leave their bodies and dance around Pan to their heart's content. That is the song and dance of our death universe. After a pause, it slowly spoke, and its voice spread throughout the ninth heaven universe. Never rise again. Lu Yin's face was gloomy as he listened quietly. In the ninth heaven universe, most people did not know about the legend of Pan, but Samsara Palm's words made them angry. It was as if something had been trampled on, something they had to protect. Qing Lian Shangyu closed his eyes and clenched his fists. His fingers pierced his palms, and blood dripped down the gaps between his fingers. Grandmaster Qing Chao looked up at the sky. It was as if he could see the proud and unyielding man who would stand even in death. The skeletons around him were dancing and dancing. Those skeletons were all humans. How could they be willing to do this? But they couldn't change it. If they had flesh and blood, they were crying. Samsara Palm's voice continued, "Do you know what is the saddest thing? It is those humans. They struggled to collect Pan's body and protect his dignity, but in the end, they had to dance the song and dance of our death universe to bury the person they respected and wanted to protect the most. This is Pan's fate. Human, do you want to be like him? In this human universe, countless people will dance for you so that you will never rise again." Lu Yin looked at Samsara Palm calmly. There was no hatred or anger in his eyes, only calmness. Samsara Palm looked at him, ignoring the celestial eyes. He didn't want to be frozen. "Human, do you understand? Pan's fate will also be yours, but as long as I retreat, death will not come. I promise, at least it will not come from my side." Lu Yin's gaze was calm and cold, so cold that no one dared to look him in the eye. "Thank you." Samsara Master was stunned. "What did you say?" Lu Yin smiled. "Thank you for letting me know the truth behind the song and dance of death. Actually, I've known about this for a long time, but I couldn't guess who was behind it. It wasn't until you had many skeletons dance that I was almost certain that it was you, but I wasn't absolutely certain. Thank you for giving me a chance to avenge my ancestors." Samsara Palm roared, "Avenge? This revenge will cost the lives of all of you. But you won't be able to see it." Lu Yin's eyes turned cold. Samsara Palm was shocked. Samsara Palm was shocked. He didn't know where Lu Yin would appear. Right in front of him, Lu Yin instantly appeared. It could even be said that he was standing on top of Samsara Palm's nose and punched at his head. The Samsara Palm tilted its head in an attempt to evade, but Lu Yin teleported behind it and punched out, causing its shoulder to crack. Samsara Palm once again circulated deathly still energy throughout his body. All living things moved on their own, causing his bones to be filled with toughness. Lu Yin didn't inject any vitality. He had decided to shatter Samsara Palm's bones inch by inch and let him experience the despair of walking towards death. Didn't he want to bring death? Then he would give it to him. As for Nibi Lo, Lu Yin didn't think about him anymore. He had completely forgotten about him. He didn't even think about safety or time. Bang! 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 Lu Yin silently teleported and punched out non-stop. Every punch was infused with all of his strength, and every punch was filled with silent hatred. His mind was filled with scenes of that standing figure, of those who had risked their lives to crawl towards him, of those who had used their own lives to fill the abyss, but in the end, all they had gotten was a skeleton singing and dancing. He could imagine the mockery of Samsara Palm at that time. Many powerhouses from those civilizations had mocked him. Just thinking about it made him feel suffocated. Samsara Palm clearly didn't have the qualifications to fight against Pan, but he had still humiliated him after Pan's death. Luin felt disgusted, and he wanted to shatter all of Samsara Palm's bones. No matter how the deathly still energy flowed, Samsara Palm couldn't defend against it at all. If one punch wasn't enough, then two. If two didn't work, then three. Luin teleported, and no one knew where he would appear. His strength seemed endless. Samsara Palm's body was constantly being shattered. He roared and wanted to retaliate, but he couldn't find Luin. If the deathly still energy spread out, then he wouldn't be able to block even one punch, but if it didn't spread, then he could only allow Luin to hit him like a target. When had Samsara Palm, one of the abyss of the death universe, ever been so miserable? This scene shocked Nibby Lo, the old man, and the others. Samsara Palm was an existence that had reached the peak of two laws of the universe, but it had been torn apart just like that. With a crack, Samsara Palm's body collapsed. One of his leg bones shattered, and half of his body tilted to the side. Human. Samsara Palm roared, and a black light emerged from his palm that pierced through the starry sky. He had been holding on to the shattered black plaza all this time, and this was the third time that the terrifying deathly still energy had erupted. The boundless deathly still energy soared into the sky and forced Luin to retreat. Luin looked up, his gaze extremely cold as he silently attacked once more. Samsara Palm sat down cross-legged with his palms facing each other. The shattered black plaza reformed in his palms, and the endless deathly still energy transformed into a black light that gradually enveloped his entire body. It was like a black curtain that reflected his skeletal form. Between his palms, the black plaza continued to spin before shattering once more, its fragments scattering everywhere. Luin looked at the shattered black plaza in front of him and felt an inexplicable sense of unease. He immediately teleported, but he could only teleport a certain distance. He didn't leave immediately. What was this? Luin was astonished. This was a method similar to Red Hero's ability to stop teleportation, but Red Hero had relied on his tricolored God Force and Umbrella, while Samsara Palm relied on the Black Plaza's fragments and the deathly still energy. Many years had passed, and every civilization had been trying to think of a way to deal with Xianling's innate ability to teleport. They had more or less figured out a way, but Xianling had been arrogant and believed that teleportation couldn't be countered. In fact, even Red Hero had found a temporary way to deal with it, let alone the Death Universe. Luin continuously teleported, but he couldn't leave completely every time. The black fragments covered the surrounding starry sky. As Samsara Palm closed his palms, countless black fragments gathered towards Luin. In the blink of an eye, they condensed into a black crystal that sealed Luin within. Luin had also been sealed. The boundless deathly still energy surged towards the black crystal. Samsara Palm's dark pupils stared at Luin. He had paid a huge price to use this move. Once he left, death would descend. Human, you will die without a doubt. With that thought, he turned around and left. Chapter 4489. The skeletal creatures that were originally living in the Black Square were all abandoned. At the same time, in the Tianyuan cosmos, the cauldron was trembling unceasingly. The karmic constellation that sealed the cauldron kept bulging out. Uppermost Blue Lotus had an ugly expression on his face. He could no longer seal the cauldron. This God King seemed to have used something. Within the Heaven Yuan cosmos, God Flowing Night had just managed to escape. He glanced at the cauldron. It was impossible to seal it. The God King's true strength was definitely not what it seemed on the surface. The absolute method of their civilization was the law of laws. They established laws in their own bodies, and as long as the laws operated, they could expand until they merged with the square inch, achieving a different kind of eternal life. Apart from this, experts who had truly broken through to the eternal life realm could also use this absolute method to have the ability to change the laws once. This meant that the Divine King was already compatible with 2 laws of the universe. If he changed the laws once more, he would be comparable to an existence who was compatible with 3 laws of the universe. This was the true power of a God King. However, this change was not easy. He had already changed once during the battle with the skeletons. Hence, the Divine King did not make a move during this battle. However, he had no choice but to make a move now. The deity kings could rely on their true battle prowess to escape, but it couldn't. It no longer wanted to participate in this battle. Behind them, the ancient gods were chasing after them. Flowing Night God had no intention of fighting him at all. Outside of Ninefirmament's universe, the black crystal had trapped Luin, and everyone saw it. Life and death calamity escape. The high defense of the Wonder Gate got up with difficulty and pierced through the starry sky with startling cloud, stabbing towards the black crystal. The startling cloud was already broken, and now that it pierced out, it couldn't even get close to the black crystal before it was erased by the deathly stillness outside. Master Greengrass also made a move, and the result was the same. Their attacks couldn't even touch the black crystal. "Do you want to help him or leave?" the old man asked Nibiluo. Nibiluo's tone was low. "How can I help him escape?" If he doesn't break free, how can he kill the abyss of the death universe? Whether the abyss dies or not has nothing to do with me. So you want to escape? Nibiluo did not refute. This battle was meaningless to him. It came here to take in Luin, who had the strength of a rogue. Now that Luin had broken through to the immortal realm, it could not take in an immortal realm expert, let alone his strength. Moreover, this person was extremely strong. Once they fought, its karmic shackles would also increase. It was not worth it. The reason why he had persisted until now was because he wanted to see the strength of this human and prevent him from taking revenge in the future. After some thought, Nibiluo suddenly attacked. The trident disappeared, and when it reappeared, it was right outside of the black crystal. With a bang, the trident pierced the black crystal, tearing apart the deathly stillness. This scene was seen by Life Calamity Palm. It looked back at Nibiluo, its enormous skeletal eyes growing increasingly dark. Interesting. The old man laughed. To Nibiluo, helping Luin escape was the best option. Letting Luin kill a samsara expert would increase the karmic restraints and prevent Luin from causing trouble for Mudwater Kingdom in the future. The current Luin was strong enough to threaten the Mudwater Kingdom, and Nibiluo didn't want to have another strong enemy. If Luin could complete his karmic binding in this battle, then it would be perfect. Within the black crystal, Luin raised his head and looked at Nibiluo. This seal was formed from all of the deathly stillness that the abyss could use to control the life and death calamity. It could be said that its defensive power was close to that of the 3 laws of the universe, and it was not something that could be easily destroyed. Nibiluo could be considered the most powerful enemy in this battle, but it was still not easy for him to break through the black crystal. The trident descended once again and pierced the black crystal. The black crystal shook continuously. In the distance, Life Calamity Palm shouted, "Old man, you're making an enemy of death." Nibiluo didn't care at all. Compared to the death universe, this human civilization was a greater threat because this human could teleport. There was also something that Nibiluo dreaded. They were both karmic cultivators, and he wanted to record this person's thoughts. This person wanted to pry into his own karmic comprehension. This was one of the reasons. He had to prevent this person from threatening Mudwater Kingdom. War was an extension of benefits, and there were no eternal enemies. Whoever was weak would be swallowed up. This was a very clear point. With a boom, it wasn't just the trident, even the tributary of the river of time attacked the black crystal. The old man had made his move. The two old monsters bombarded the black crystal, causing it to crack continuously. Over at the Tianyuan universe, the karmic phenomena were about to collapse. Qinglian Shangyu took a step forward and sat on the karmic chain, using his own body to suppress the God King. Life Calamity Palm's entire body turned cold. Those two bastards wanted to kill him. Quickly, quickly, quickly. With a bang, the black crystal shattered. Lu Yin waved his hand and scattered the fragments, teleporting away. When he appeared again, he was in front of Life Calamity Palm. His gaze was still calm, but the coldness in his eyes was enough to freeze the world. Do you know where the Divine Time Chariot is? Life Calamity Palm shouted. Lu Yin's gaze moved as he stared at it. Life Calamity Palm said, the Divine Time Chariot is Pan's mount. It guarded one side with Pan, and when Pan died in battle, the Divine Time Chariot was taken away by the Death Universe. It only acknowledged Pan in its life, and other than Pan, no creature can ride it, not even existences that conform to the three laws of the universe. That's why after it was captured, even if the bone whispers were used to bestow life upon its bones and tear apart its flesh and blood to turn it into a bone horse, it still refused to submit. It never turned over, and all four of its hooves were pointed upwards, just so that no one could ride it. It's in the universe of death. Lu Yin's mind rumbled. All four of its hooves were pointed upwards, and it never turned over, just so that no one could ride it. The Divine Time Chariot was a bone horse. To Pan, it's his most important companion. When he died in battle, only this horse followed him. If you really care about Pan, then let me go. I'll release the Divine Time Chariot. I promise I'll release it. It's useless in the Death Universe anyway. Without my help, you'll never be able to take it away. Lu Yin calmly looked at Life Calamity Palm. A deal? Life Calamity Palm nodded. Yes, a deal. Lu Yin's gaze was cold. If Pan was still alive, would he have agreed? You're not worthy of making a deal with me. Your life in exchange for the Divine Time Chariot. If the Divine Time Chariot found out, it would only be shameful. All things value benefits, but some hot-blooded people should not be tainted by benefits. You're not worthy of mentioning them. After saying that, he teleported in front of Life Calamity Palm and punched out. This punch shattered half of Life Calamity Palm's head. Life Calamity Palm roared, "Not worthy." These two words brought him back to a distant battlefield. In that direction, a man and a horse looked at each other coldly. He wanted to rush over, but he didn't dare. Even the horse looked down on him. A voice stopped him, telling him that he wasn't worthy of fighting them. Why wasn't he worthy? At that time, he had already conformed to two laws of the universe, so why wasn't he worthy? He didn't want to see that kind of gaze again. A mere mount, a mere horse, dared to look down on him. The bone palm slapped towards Lu Yin, but Lu Yin raised a hand to meet it head-on. He then flipped over and kicked out, snapping the bone palm in half. He then used another palm to meet it, but Lu Yin's starry fist directly shattered its arm. Lu Yin was much smaller than Life Calamity Palm, but he continued to break down and destroy his opponent's bones inch by inch, causing Life Calamity Palm's body to shrink. Life Calamity Palm fought back crazily, and every time he attacked, a bone would be shattered. He forgot what was in front of him and Lu Yin, as if he had returned to that ancient battlefield. He looked at the man and horse calmly standing in the distance and wanted to charge over. Charge! Bang! A head flew up. Lu Yin grabbed Life Calamity Palm's head and stared at the two skeletal eyes. His gaze was cold as he slapped down. The bones shattered. Life Calamity Palm's swaying body slowly collapsed. In the distance, Ni Beiluo saw this and stared at Lu Yin's wrist. The karmic bind had increased by an unexpected amount. In the Tianyuan universe, the karmic phenomenon was torn apart. The Azure Lotus defense compressed the laws, but it was sent flying by a terrifying force. The God King had changed the laws and was now an existence that conformed to 3 laws of the universe. He directly escaped the seal. As soon as he came out, he looked towards the Ninifirmament's universe. Far away in the Ninifirmament's universe, Luin held the shattered bones and slowly turned around. The 3 universes were silent. Luin, Ni Beluo, and the God King looked at each other. From the God King and Ni Beluo's point of view, they saw Life Calamity Palm's headless bones collapse. Life Calamity Palm was definitely not weak, but he had died tragically. This scene caused all the powerhouses who saw it to fall silent. With Life Calamity Palm's death, the deathly stillness contained within the bones overflowed and turned them into ashes, causing the surroundings to fall into darkness. Luin casually tore through the darkness and stepped out. He arrived in the Ninifirmament's universe and stared at Ni Beluo. A trident spun in front of Ni Beluo. "Human, you still want to fight?" "Why not?" Luin said coldly. Ni Beluo said in a low voice, "Your karmic restraints are increasing. Do you want to be unable to fight forever? Or do you plan to die in this battle? Don't forget, you only came out because of me." Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. "Since you've come to my human civilization, don't think of leaving peacefully." He then turned to the God King. "The same goes for you. I will completely destroy your divine realm." The God King said, "Even now, you may not be able to defeat me. However, there is no point in fighting with you. Whoever wins will have to pay an unbearable price. Human, protect your own civilization." With that, he turned and left. Ni Beluo did the same and disappeared with the trident. Lu Yin could not easily catch up to Ni Beluo. The trident could also teleport, but he could catch up to the God King. He teleported and then reappeared in front of the God King. He punched out, simple and direct. The God King was still in his altered state. Countless white dots turned into sharp blades and slashed out. The distance between them was split in 2. Lu Yin's fist was torn apart and dripping with blood. He was facing an existence that was close to matching the 3 laws of the universe. Back then, such a God King had defeated Lo Ku Jin and single-handedly turned the divine realm into a civilization that was feared by all. The divine realm was a complete fishing civilization. In terms of status, it was the same as the unknowable and death universes. It was all because of the God King's existence. "Human, you can't beat me. Don't seek your own death," the God King shouted. Chapter 4490. Was he looking for death? Luin felt that this was not enough. How many humans had died in this battle? The spiritualized universes were restarting, and the progenitors had disappeared. All of this was because of these powerful enemies. They wanted to run when they could not win. How could it be so easy? When Luin had broken through to immortality, he had used a unique method to separate his power. As long as this body did not have any karmic restraints, he could attack and kill another. He wanted to kill another powerful enemy and completely intimidate everyone. Nibiru had been the best choice, but it had run away. The God King had to be destroyed as well, as it was too close to human civilization. At that moment, a door suddenly appeared in the Tian Yuan universe. Luin turned around and looked at the door in shock. Countless people saw the door. Unknown. The next moment, a familiar creature appeared from within the door. It slowly stepped out and hissed at the sky. Was that an immortal plume? No one had expected an immortal plume to appear at this moment. However, this immortal plume seemed to be in a more miserable state. One of its eyes was blind, and half of its wings were broken. Even its claws were sharp and flattened. No matter how one looked at it, it seemed to have experienced a life and death battle. However, with the appearance of this immortal plume, a terrifying chill swept through the three universes, causing countless people to shiver. It was as if they were looking directly at a natural disaster. The ancient gods stopped chasing after Nightflow. Progenitor Chen held Wang Xiaoyu's corpse and slowly looked up. Ba Rong was stunned. What a vast aura! Jiang Feng gripped his sword tightly. This was going to be troublesome. Mr. Mu took a deep breath. This was truly ruthless. In the Nine Firmaments universe, Stargate Shangyu's face was pale. Master Qingcao's expression was grave. Wang Wen, how much did you prepare for this battle? Qinglian Shangyu's mouth was bleeding as he looked at the immortal plume. It was Tell the Heavens. Although he had never seen it before, he had heard of the all-out battle between the unknown and the immortal plume, and he immediately guessed that this immortal plume was Tell the Heavens. Lu Yin looked at the Tian Yuan universe. Although the immortal plume looked miserable, it was still releasing a terrifying aura toward Zhongyang. It was Tell the Heavens, the old monster that Lu Yin had used teleportation to set up a concealment array, but had still appeared to battle with Wang Wen. Lu Yin had once felt Tell the Heavens' aura, and just sensing it had made his scalp numb. Now, Tell the Heavens had descended. Wang Wen stroked the heavenly hound's fur. Beside him, a door appeared and a voice could be heard, the heavens have appeared. The corners of Wang Wen's mouth curled up. Your Highness, I was right. Your Highness, breaking through is a good thing, but your karmic restraints have reached perfection as soon as you break through. Your path to immortality has come to an end. You guessed that Lu Yin would break through. How should I put it? It's just a possibility. But any possibility is reality for him. Others have to use 90% of their luck to fight for a chance of survival, but he can use 1% of his luck to fight for a chance of survival. Suing the heavens is your last resort. Why would it listen to you? I just told it that if the portal opens at a certain time, it should go over and kill all the creatures it sees. That way, I won't chase after it. But even if Yao Tian doesn't appear, Lu Yin will still fight the God King. If he wins, the karmic bindings will be completed, but if he loses, he will most likely die. Whether or not Yao Tian appears will not affect the outcome. Lu Yin doesn't plan on letting the God King and Nibiru off. Wang Wen smiled. Regardless of whether we win or lose, we have to sue the heavens. In the heaven origin cosmos, everyone was stunned by Defendant Sky's appearance. The God King had run away, but no one cared. Defendant Sky walked out of the portal and looked around. Fong was shocked. Humans. It looked at the cosmos and saw many people. Then, it looked in another direction and saw the ninth firmament cosmos, the spiritualized cosmos, and the eternal realm cultivators. The corners of its mouth curled up. So it's the humans who want me to kill. That's exactly what I want. Humans shouldn't even exist. After saying that, it suddenly stared at the cauldron. The ninth wall's cornerstone turbid treasure. Qinglian Shangyu and Mr. Mu stood on both sides of the cauldron. Defendant Sky looked at them, and its eyes curved. This cauldron is mine. After saying that, it instantly disappeared and reappeared in front of the cauldron. It completely ignored Qinglian Shangyu and Mr. Mu as it grabbed at the cauldron with its sharp claws. Lu Yin teleported and punched out. There was a loud bang as the fist collided with the sharp claws. The void was torn apart, and a surging force spread out in all directions with Lu Yin and Defendant Sky at the center. Qinglian Shangyu and Mr. Mu hurriedly retreated with the cauldron. Defendant Sky looked at the tiny Lu Yin beneath its claws, and the enormous force continued to invade its body. It was unable to maintain its teleportation and retreat for a moment. Lu Yin frowned where he stood. What a powerful defense. Although Defendant Sky's strength could not compare to Lu Yin's, its defense surpassed that of life or death Calamity Palm. This was the defensive strength of someone who was compatible with 3 laws of the universe. Even if Defendant Sky's strength was not its forte, its life form surpassed that of someone who was compatible with 2 laws of the universe. If Lu Yin had not broken through in the past, he would not have been able to harm even a single hair on Defendant Sky's head. Wang Wen's plans were far-reaching, and he often took 1 step before taking 3 steps. Lu Yin had originally thought that Ni Biluo and the other absolute powerhouses were already the greatest plan. Logically speaking, the human civilization should not have been able to hold on. He had not expected Defendant Sky to appear. Why was Defendant Sky helping Wang Wen? It had almost been slaughtered by Wang Wen before. Yes. Defendant Sky's sharp eyes stared at Lu Yin. Human, I remember your aura. You are one of the unknowns, and you used the clear sky sourcebox array to block my senses of the outside world. You can teleport. Lu Yin met Defendant Sky's gaze, but he had not opened his heaven's eye. I also remember you, Defendant Sky. On the surface, I blocked your aura, but in reality, you used this to force Wang Wen out and create an opportunity for a decisive battle with him. Unfortunately, you are not Wang Wen's opponent at all. You were beaten so badly that you did not even dare to return home. Defendant Sky's expression was gloomy. Lu Yin did not understand. Wang Wen is clearly your greatest enemy, so why are you helping him? Defendant Sky sneered, you do not have the right to know at your level. However, you are quite special since you were able to obtain my immortal feather's innate teleportation ability. Just now, you used your strength to force me back, which is quite extraordinary. You even caused Wang Wen to use me to attack. Lu Yin frowned. You knew that you were being used, but you still willingly attacked. You have no sense of shame. Not only have you embarrassed yourself, but you have also embarrassed Immortal Feather. Although I have always felt that Immortal Feather was shameless, you are even more shameless. You are courting death. Defendant Sky was enraged as he teleported above Lu Yin's head. His sharp claws descended, and an incomparably valiant aura descended like a mountain. Although it was not as vast as the deathly stillness energy, nor was it as sharp as the trident, there was an indescribable pressure that was filled with an irresistible force. It was as if Lu Yin was facing an eternal life realm monster for the first time. This was an aura that was compatible with 3 universal laws. If the aura that was compatible with 1 universal law was like fog, it could be seen but could not be touched, then the aura that was compatible with 2 universal laws was like water, it could be seen but could not be touched. As for the aura that was compatible with 3 universal laws, it was like a rock. It was hard and brought about substantial pressure. It was completely different from Mingyu and Changdou. If he had not broken through, Lu Yin would not have been able to withstand this claw with his tricolored godly power transformation. He would have been torn to pieces. Fortunately, after breaking through to the eternal life realm, this overwhelming aura was not enough to make him powerless to resist. Furthermore, Defendant Sky was already heavily injured, and his aura was not as strong as old ancestor Shan's. Lu Yin's body withered. Starry Fist. Civilization transformed into a constellation as he stepped on a star chart and punched out. A berserk power accompanied the fist intent as it slammed into the sharp claw, causing it to bend. Suddenly, Lu Yin felt uneasy and immediately teleported away from where he had just been. He felt an intense pain in his arm, and when he looked over, he saw that a large wound had appeared on his arm. His breakthrough to the eternal life realm had completely healed his injuries. He had not suffered such an injury even when he had fought against life and death Samsara Palm or a godly king. Defendant Sky had injured him the moment he attacked. Although it was only a superficial wound. Lu Yin looked at the wound on his arm. How had Defendant Sky attacked? He had not even seen the attack, and it had even directly torn apart his arm, which had been in the extreme reversal state. This wisp of sharpness was extremely terrifying. Defendant Sky suddenly teleported and descended once more. The sharp claw descended, but this time, Luin was on guard. He did not move his fist, but his life force was as vast as the sea and rushed into the sky. He saw a wisp of sharpness tearing through the life force in the center of the claw and heading straight for his head. Luin tilted his head and avoided the sharpness. He took a step forward and teleported behind Defendant Sky. He punched out, but Defendant Sky disappeared in an instant and reappeared. The Feather God's spear pierced through the void and stabbed towards Luin. This was not Nan Ling's Feather God's spear. Luin knew very well that he could not withstand Defendant Sky's Feather God's spear. If he took it head-on, he would only be injured, just like before. The bright rain was like a long bucket. He could only dodge. The Feather God's spear pierced through the void, and Defendant Sky hissed as he attacked again. The Feather God's spears pierced out one after another and fell down like raindrops. Luin constantly teleported to avoid the Feather God's spears, but they were not only aimed at him, but also the entire Nine Firmaments universe. If he allowed them to fall, the Nine Firmaments universe would truly be restarted. Countless cultivators of the Nine Firmaments universe looked at the sharpness descending from the sky. This was an attack that they could not stop. Luin hurriedly made his wish come true, and his huge figure enveloped the entire Nine Firmaments universe. Borrowing the force, he pushed through the starry sky and attacked the Feather God's spears from the side, causing the entire starry sky to turn dark. In front of him, Defendant Sky appeared and attacked while Luin was attacking the Feather God's spears. His sharp claws descended, and Luin dodged as fast as he could. However, one of his arms was still grabbed. Seeing Defendant Sky's mocking gaze that was filled with killing intent, Luin opened his celestial eye and smiled. Defendant Sky was stunned and stared blankly at the celestial eye. A long-lost memory surfaced. Fourth stronghold, Celestial Eye Tribe. The next moment, black lines appeared around Defendant Sky and covered him, immobilizing him. Defendant Sky's pupils shrank, and he cried out, "The innate gift of the ten-eyed crow. Human, you actually have its innate gift." When Defendant Sky had first appeared, he had gone to battle with Wang Wen. After that, he had not returned to Xianling County, so he did not know that Mingyu, Chang Do, and the others had died. The only thing he knew about Luin was that he could teleport, which was why he had used him to shield himself from external perception. However, who would have thought that this person was actually from the fourth stronghold Celestial Eye Tribe and had the innate gift of the ten-eyed crow? Damn it, the ten-eyed divine crow's talent had actually reappeared. Tell the heavens to be fixed. As strong as it was, if it encountered a scoundrel strength, crow immobilization was not invincible, and it was impossible for it to surpass several levels and use its shameless strength to immobilize Tell the Heavens, who was in harmony with three of the universe's laws. But now, Luin was also in the Eternal Realm, and not just any ordinary Eternal Realm. He could fight against an existence that was at the pinnacle of two universal laws. It was normal for Crow to be able to immobilize it in a head-on confrontation when it was already heavily injured. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.